At this time, I'll call our meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. We have with us this evening Pastor Ellen McCubbin from Hope Mills United Methodist Church to lead us in our invocation, which will then be followed by our Pledge of Allegiance. And if all will, please rise.
Let us pray. Oh Lord God, you have placed us in a wonderful place, in a wonderful country. And yet it's a country where right now we have to wear masks for our safety. It's a country where right now people aren't trusting each other. It's a country that's full of fear. But you, O God, are above all fear. We know that you are with us. We ask your guidance tonight with decisions to be made tonight, with relationships between all who come to speak, that the good of the community will be readily apparent, that your will guide and direct all those wonderful workers and citizens of this community. So Lord, we ask you to bless us in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of a very difficult economy. We ask for your blessing of peace and wisdom and knowledge. And we thank you, God, that you're here and going before us before we even asked. For we pray in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. At this time, are there any additions or deletions from the agenda? I have one addition, and that would be under new business, item E, and it would be an appointment of a special committee. Are there any other additions or deletions? If not, do I have a motion to approve the agenda that is before you?
So moved.
Do I have a motion and a second? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. We have a presentation tonight of transportation information from Desmond Ellerby, Sure Modes of Everyday Transportation, LLC. And I'll recognize you at this time.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and the Council. On tonight, I want to present to you a proposal for transportation, affordable public transportation for the community. It's certainly an honor and definitely a passion of mine. And I do have some packets I'd like to pass out, if I may, to each member of the board, including the council, including the town manager.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right, and in this packet is pretty much what was also submitted as far as presentation that was to be presented on the screen here. I don't know if we have anyone that was able to navigate that. In the packet, I also included maps of the services that was created to serve the community. Going to page 1, we wanted to first introduce myself. My name is Desmond Ellerby. A little bit about me. Thank you. Okay. A little about me. I've been in transportation for a little over 12 years. It's definitely a passion of mine. I've been in various modes of transportation, from student transportation to door-to-door demand response service to fixed route public transit service. The style of service that I'm proposing here for the town of Hope Mills is more of a fixed route flex service, because there's 3 groups of residents that we want to provide this service for, and that's the youth, school age, middle age working citizens as well as our senior citizens, which ties into those persons with disabilities. We do know that there's a lot of things and a lot of growth that's happening here in the town of Hope Mills, which I'm happy to see. And since 2013, it's been a passion of mine to present a service as such to this community. If you look at routes, well, first, our purpose here, we want to provide you with clean, safe, and affordable public transit on a fixed route basis. We want to also offer a sort of a door-to-door service through this fixed route service. What happens is a passenger would call in prior to that bus beginning its route to notify us of any deviations that would accommodate those persons with disability. Our buses will be equipped with GPS tracking and technologies that ensure the safety and well-being of our passengers and personnel. Our goal is to provide affordable fixed route transportation options for underserved areas. And what we want to expound on is the fact that we want to offer convenient, reliable, safe, effective, and most of all, affordable transportation. There's not many options in the community for affordable transportation for all residents in the town of Hope Mills, and especially those persons of the senior citizen category and those with disabilities. There's many programs here that helps those persons with disabilities and those persons that are seniors, veterans, and such. And with it not being options for them, it affects their social life. So we want to give them an opportunity not to have to rely on a stranger or someone out in the public. They will have some of them don't have access to mobile devices, electronic devices, or don't even know how to operate them to a point to where they will download an Uber app and where they feel comfortable on an Uber app. So we want to provide something within the town that is tailored to the needs of this town versus it being outsourced to maybe the city of Fayetteville or whomever who may have brought an interest to the area. But we want to create something that is named even after this town, which a name that we came up with was Hope Trans. And Hope Trans is an abbreviation for Hope Mills Transit. And my belief is that this is a town where hope can become reality. And so we have, on some research that I have done, there's about 16,000 residents here. And in that 16,000, about 15% are considered to be in poverty. Now, this information I did gather from research, and it may have adjusted over time. And we know that we have about 1,383 seniors and about 3,500 students that are school age. And in this plan, also, I like to address the fact that, we have students or children, age of teenagers, who are living in single-family homes and single-parent homes. And what happens is if a parent goes to work and a child misses a school bus, they don't have options. So what are they going to do? Most of the time, they're going to stay home. They're going to skip. So we want to give everybody options to access this service that will probably benefit them. All right, we have routes 101, Traymore. These are just proposed routes, and these are proposed service frequencies and operation times. Route 101 will service the quarters between along Rockfish Road between Gulfview and Traymore Village. And this gives citizens, this service is strictly the town of Hope Mills, giving our residents here an option to get to town hall events such as tonight, maybe coming in and taking part in the town hall meetings. This gives senior citizens the opportunity to access the senior program here at the rec center. This also gives access to our golf course that is there if anything was to move as far as that. It gives us access to the city park, town parks. So, and also it gives us access to the town lake. And these are investments that I know you all work so hard to get in place. And so I want to provide something or present something to you that will give our residents an opportunity to access these crucial recreational activities within the town. We have routes 102, which is the Crosstown Link. The Crosstown Link is also a Monday through Friday service. We also got presented here Saturday service, which is something that we can discuss on maybe incorporating later on. But we do know that weekends are when families spends most of their time together, and they may utilize this service and be able to utilize it as a family versus getting an Uber car and riding one individual person or two individual persons within a vehicle. This route services the areas along Legion Road, and it connects with the fast bus service over at the Walmart at Gillespie Street. And this will give the residents the opportunity to access services outside of the town of Hope Mills, meaning city services in Fayetteville. It gives them access to Fort Bragg. It gives them connections to Spring Lakes service that's already implemented now. So what we want to do is we wanted to create a network here, but at the same time we offer our residents, not giving other residents the chance to come here without addressing the need in our community. But we want to create something that gives our residents an opportunity to reach other areas and all of the important resources that are out there for them there. And the last route is Route 103. 103 is labeled 103 Cross Creek Mall. That's only because Cross Creek Mall is a major point of interest along this route. It will service areas like Cape Fear Valley Medical Center, giving our residents an option to access medical services. It gives us an opportunity to access jobs. It gives us shopping opportunities, entertainment opportunities. When we have our own here, which means that we don't have to step here to 103 right now. This is long-term transit planning, and we want to give them opportunities to access these crucial points of interest, including the VA Medical Center. I included that there. We have veterans in this community, I'm sure, that needs access to those crucial VA services that is tailored to their needs, their medical needs. So this route addresses that as well, and it's on a 60-minute frequency. Now, the time here is from 6:25 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. However, we can entertain a service to where we might do 4 trips a day, 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening, that type deal, and it still gives them all of the opportunities they need to travel, take care of business, and even they can access the Route 102 and connect back with the 31 at all times of the day. So it does not mean they only have to use that route 4 times a day. And so the key points of interest along these routes, of course, as I emphasized as I was speaking before, was Town Hall, the Senior Center, the current and future recreational points, area schools, Walmart shopping centers, Main Street, Rockfish Road, and Legion Road, which are, of course, the main quarters here in the town of Hope Mills. The movie theater here along Camden Road was another major point of interest, and we did include that in a route, as well as the housing development, Green Village, I believe it was, Green Village. We have Green Village included into this plan because we know that many residents are, don't have the means or the resources that they need in order to just enjoy an everyday life. And most of all, to enjoy what has been built here in this town. And I know that I don't want to be before you long, but if you look into your packets, I have those routes broken down in a visual point. And if you open it up, you'll see the Traymore Village Route 101. If you know the configurations or the geographics of this town, you can see how it's broken down, and it pretty much stands out and shows key points of interest and connection points for this route, as well as 102 and 103. We also put together some fare sets, which is totally it's totally up to the town what they want to charge a person to board the bus. However, we presented costs that we recommend just to help us to sustain this service. A one-way fare on the fixed route bus, meaning just for a passenger to come out to a bus stop and access this bus, is $3 one way. But we offer an all-day fare, which allows passengers to board as much as they want for the full length of service that we render that particular day, and that would cost them $6. Then we have a Paratransit Fare. The Paratransit Fare could consist of whether we operate a paratransit service, meaning an actual door-to-door service with vans to complement the fixed route service, or if we were to do that fixed route deviation service that I mentioned before. And those persons would pay a $3 fee just for the additional time, effort, and resources that it takes in order to accommodate that. Me personally, I don't believe that persons with disabilities should be punished because of their disability, or a senior, anyone needing that deviation service. However, we do know that it costs to provide that service. So that's why I want to leave that up to discussion between myself and you all once we come back for a follow-up or whatever the case may be, as far as what we'll charge, how we'll move forward. What we offer that's better than others is I thrive on providing an effective service, and affordable on-time transportation service is key. You know, making sure that when we present something to the community, that we follow through with what it is that we presented to them. And on-time performance is essential. So we want to make sure that we expound on that. Convenience. The fact that we want to operate the fixed route flex service, we want to give each and every resident an opportunity within that 3/4 of a mile requirement by the ADA that asks us and requests us to go out into 3/4 of a mile outside of the fixed route service to accommodate them. And we want to provide that convenience to them. Community engagement, to invest in local events and support disadvantaged populations. So when we create this service, we don't only want to bring these ideas for ourselves. We don't want to just create this service and not get the community involved in it. We want the community's engagement in this because it helps us to create an effective service. If we don't know what the community wants, how can we provide a service that's going to serve them and meet the needs that they may have? So we want to get community engagement. And also we want to allow local businesses, small businesses, to promote their small business. And we was looking to offer maybe advertisement on buses. We was looking at some different partners around that might be willing to help us to make that reality. And this may cost a certain amount of money that will help us to sustain this service. Paratransit for disabled riders, compliant with the ADA Disability Act, and we discussed that. We want to make sure that we're meeting all requirements by the Americans with Disability. Train professional drivers and support staff to ensure quality customer service and rider input. We want to create a team not only for my company, but within the community, create a board, an advisory committee that would meet maybe once a month, and they discuss the things that we may need to improve with this service. So it's not that we're just out here operating a service without getting the community support, as well as a board to organize the input that's given from the community and implement it in an effective manner. We also want to provide GPS locations on the vehicles. We want passengers to know where their bus is. We want to know where the buses are, and we want to make sure that safety is a key factor in providing this service. We hear all the time about situations happening on transit buses, but we want to create something where we address those concerns before we create this service and we put this service in effect. So we'll be in communication probably with local law enforcement and different things like that, so that we make sure that when we create this service that the persons aboard are safe. We are taking COVID-19 safety protocols for cleaning and maintenance of our vehicles. So we plan and we put into our plan how we can address these concerns as far as giving passengers masks that may not have the ability to purchase those masks, to make sure that our buses are fully sanitized at the end of each shift. If we can do them in between routes, we'll do that as well. We do know that it's time consuming, but if we have to equip our drivers as they go along their route with the necessary equipment that they need to make sure that the passengers feel safe and sanitary during their ride, we'll do that. And again, we are sure modes of everyday transportation, and we take pride in providing effective service to the community. And I just want you to know that this is not something I'm looking forward to getting wealthy off of. This is something that I have a passion about. And when I look at this community, I viewed a committee that was formed within the Fayetteville metropolitan area, and I overlooked that vision over to 2035. And from what I saw, the projected services that are provided did not complement or did not focus on the need of Hope Mills, in my opinion. And we've been going for several years, and no one has taken an interest outside of Hope Mills to try and help us to achieve what we need, what the community needs. And so I want to take part in making sure that you all do not have to do the hard work, but I'll do the hard work and make this thing a reality if you all are looking to make it a reality. Is there any questions that anyone may have in regards to the services that I presented to you today? Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
I have one.
Commissioner Edwards.
On purpose, you said that you also provided door-to-door service for the seniors or ADAs.
Yes.
Now, what do you mean by that? Do you mean that if a senior is not able to walk to the bus stop,
Yes, ma'am.
are you saying that they'll come to their door and pick them up?
Yes,
and take them back?
Yes, ma'am. ADA requires us, if we have a fixed route service, that we are to address the ADA needs within 3/4 of a mile from that fixed route. So what we're proposing to the council today is for us to be able to deviate that bus to accommodate that need. So that passenger with the disability would call us, and we would arrange that pickup within that service hour, meaning that 60-minute frequency. We'll incorporate that pickup into that stop to get them where they need to go. Or we can discuss providing a paratransit service, which means we may have 2 to 3 vans that would address the needs for ADA clients within this town. So we will pick them up door to door with those vans and then bring them to the nearest bus stop or a connection point where we know that it's safe for those passengers to make transition from the van to the bus. And that way, another reason why I wanted to do the flex, or we was looking to propose the flex route service, was so that if we had multiple residents that needs this service, that when they get finished with their business, that they don't have to wait so long. We want them to have the same opportunities as those persons who are not with disability. So they'll be able to, as they get off, to access these local businesses while aboard the fixed route service. But if it's something that the community feels that we should add vans to accommodate them, then I'm willing to discuss that as well. Because it is important. Seniors are important. Senior citizens are important. If you have a family, if you're a senior and you don't have family, it's hard. It's very hard. And so I want to address that concern by offering them a service that they can afford and that's effective, and a service that they can contribute to, meaning they can give their input, and we make an attempt to satisfy their needs.
Okay, we have a lot of seniors in Hope Mills that live on a low income, or their
Yes.
social security
Yes,
check,
ma'am.
and what they get monthly is first of the month. Some of them are not ADA.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are very, very independent, and they refuse to acknowledge the fact that they can't walk here or walk there.
Yes, ma'am.
They're very proud,
Yes, ma'am.
and a lot of them are afraid
Yes,
to
ma'am.
get off a transit. I mean, they want to take a bus, but they're afraid to get off the transit. If they go shopping, they have packages.
Mm-hmm.
To get off the transit, the bus, to go to their apartment, and if it's late, And that's a lot of their concerns.
Well, in this plan, we can discuss allowing those passengers to bring on what we call personal care assistance. So if they want to bring those persons aboard with them to help them to accomplish or to overcome that fear, that's fine. We can discuss how we can allow that person maybe to accompany them at either a free rate or a reduced rate to allow those seniors to be able to overcome that fear that they may have to utilize this service. Or, as I stated before, we can discuss the the paratransit service that goes door to door, demand response, as it's like a dial-a-ride style service. They dial a ride, the van comes, and it's catered to them and all other persons with disability. We can discuss that too. I think that's the most effective way, being that it's tailored to the needs of those persons with disabilities.
Are you going to offer a voucher service or something for them?
Honestly, I would prefer that persons that are considered seniors or persons with disabilities to either have a discounted rate or, they earn their right to have a free service. We can still take fare from the general public, but as far as those persons that have disabilities that are seniors, I think we should discuss how we can better accommodate them.
Thank you.
Yes. Anyone
Any
else?
other questions? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Ellaby, so piggybacking off of what you just said about the discounted rate, is there a way to have an option of a monthly rate?
A multi-ride pass?
Have a monthly pass.
Or weekly.
Yeah,
We could do that. I wanted to give you general figures on what I think would help us to sustain. That's all I did. I'm really open to input, and anything is possible. Anything is possible. I think that that's possible. I believe that we can do multi-ride passes. We can do monthly passes. We can do weekly passes.
Yeah.
Because when you attract riders the more you offer, the more riders you attract. And I believe that if we offer a 30-day package, the price drops and more people will purchase that. I have, by the way, I didn't get to say this. I have support from the Small Business Association, who couldn't be here with me tonight because of the COVID restrictions. She was looking forward to standing before you all and letting you know that we do have the backing of the Small Business Association, which has helped me tremendously in planning this. We also have some help from Fayetteville State with students who are doing internships who want to be a part of this, creating this and making it a reality for the citizens of Hope Mills. So I believe that they were interested with doing surveys. They wanted to go out into the community, and I thought the best way to do that would be possibly to set up a date, utilize the bus service, ride around, and then give out these surveys or allow people to ride the bus. Maybe it'll be free. I can try to work something out with that, but just to allow people to see it for themselves and how effective this could be for the community. And at that time, the students could either give out surveys, or I don't know if you all are able to do it, but I was thinking as well as another way to get surveys out was maybe water bills or some way that we send out daily, maybe newsletters. I don't know how the town maybe sends things out to their residents, but a water bill is the perfect way to do it. To put that survey inside the water bill and allow those persons to send that in, that survey in, so we can assess the actual need within the community.
Well, the only other thing I have, I think, is a compliment. I think that one of the things that I was concerned with is that when people ask for transportation, they don't want transportation that's going to take them 5 hours to get from one side of town to the next. So I think
Yes,
that
ma'am.
effective transportation is important.
Yes, ma'am.
I think that it's important for senior citizens,
Yes,
people
ma'am.
that are disabled, and for students and children that
Yes.
to use it. And I like the way that it will it has access to Cape Valley,
Yes, ma'am.
veterans, hospital, people who they're able to get their medical needs. So
Yes, ma'am.
I think the only other things that I had was compliments and the cost, but I don't think you're there yet.
I would recommend, if we could, for everybody to look through those maps, look through the presentation, see what it is that attracts you the most, and let's work on making an approach and working towards a short-term and a long-term transit plan. So if we don't start all three tomorrow, next year, at least we can start one that serves the direct need of this community, meaning giving those persons within this town an opportunity to get to the things that they need within this town. And then we can expand and give them access to other services outside of the town limits.
Madam Mayor, I have one.
Yes, Commissioner Bellflowers.
Mr. Elby.
Yes, sir.
Nice presentation.
Thank you, thank
I
you.
feel your passion.
Whew.
I feel it.
I tell you, I appreciate it. I was a little nervous because I thought my support was going to be here, but I have all the support I need. I have all the support
It's
I
up
need.
there. That's all you need.
Yes, sir. Thank you, and
Yeah.
I know that he's on my side all the way. And,
Always.
and that's what matters. That's what matters.
All right, let's go.
All right. Thank you
Let's
for your
go to,
time.
I do have a question.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I have a comment and
Okay.
a question.
Great.
Regarding the three routes.
Mhm.
And Mayor Pro Tem was dead on with Route 103.
Mhm.
I would like for you to look at including Fayetteville Technical Community College. I think that would be an excellent point.
Yes.
A lot of our students live and work here in Hope Mills,
Yes,
and the Mayor Pro Tem knows that as well because we both work for the college,
Okay.
and that's also a good transfer point.
Yes.
For FSU or Methodist or any other location, on that side of Fayetteville. So I really would like to see you include that, and I like this route because it starts here, it goes to Cape Fear Medical, it goes up to Cross Creek Mall, which folks use that as a transfer point. It'll go out to the VA Medical Center,
Yes, sir.
and if we can include our college students here in the loop,
Okay.
what I call the loop,
Okay.
I think you got I think you got everybody
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
on one bus
Yes, sir.
going somewhere.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I think at that point, ridership numbers would be where we need them to be, and the service, we'll be able to see it ourselves with our own eyes that it's an effective service if we include everyone in this plan.
Well, yeah,
And
yeah.
that's my goal.
And you were saying earlier, you can't do all three of them, but
Yes, sir.
I tell you, if we had to start somewhere, it would be 103.
And speaking of, if I may,
But that's just Mayor. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
if I may, Madam Mayor, and I was thinking that, it is a barrier in transportation, and it may be difficult for our residents to get long range travel. And it may be to a point to where we can offer something where if the residents can get to a certain location, we can give them an opportunity to reach or to expand their travel. So if we can, if that's something that you all would think is a good start to give them the opportunity to come to a location, and then we begin a route that gives them access to pretty much everything they need, that's fine. And then we can just add the ADA service to serve the town limits and giving those seniors and persons with disability just access to that route as well. So that way those vans don't have to service a wide area, because when you do that you have to add more vehicles, and it makes it very, very difficult to maintain. So if we could have the vans, we can do two vans and then one bus that serves the 103, and that way we still giving our seniors the opportunity to utilize the service. I do want to make sure that we include them as well as our disabled veterans and such, so giving them access to it so that they can reach those crucial
Commissioner Marley?
services.
Yes, sir. I've never heard of Sure Mode Transportation, so are you an independent business? You a contractor?
Yes, sir.
What-
Sure Mode's everyday transportation, as you see everywhere, it says Team SureMet, and we abbreviated Sure Mode's everyday transportation with SureMet, and it is a private entity, and it was created as a child. My mother had cancer, and she struggled to get to her treatments. We lived about 2.5 hours from Chapel Hill, and she had to travel to her treatments periodically. And there were times when there was no friends around, it was definitely no service to get her there. And so she drove herself. She would come back sometimes, she was very sick, she barely made it back home. There were times when she had car trouble. I mean, the wheels literally caught on fire one time. It was crazy. But she struggled, and it made me feel as though how many other people out there are going through that. And we're not providing a long range service, but we're providing a local service, but which is meeting more needs than just those ones that try. It's more people locally that can't get around than it is just a person that needs to travel hundreds of miles to get treatments. So it is a private entity, and it was created in memory of my mother, which SureMo's Everyday Transportation, which is abbreviated by SureMet, is SureMet, but really her name was Sandra Marie Ellaby, so it was SME Transportation, which is Sandra Marie Ellaby's Transportation. And so that's why I created it, but of course, I knew that. And that's what meant so much to me. So we are private, and it's a passion of mine. And I have a team of support that knows that I have a passion for it, and they're willing to help me to make sure that if you are, whatever the need is for this town, we can meet them.
What's the cost to the town?
That
And what are you looking at? In other words, if you're a private company that's offering a service, why would you need our blessing? Is it going to cost the town something? Are you looking at entering into a contract with the town?
Yes, sir, I am. Yes, sir.
And what's the cost to the town? Because to be honest with you, we've talked. Previous board I was on, we discussed public transportation. The previous board before this board discussed public transportation, and it always come down to price and money, and we couldn't afford it.
And that's why I'm willing to sit with your budget officers or whomever it is to discuss pricing. However, we can tailor this to meet the first of all, whatever the town can afford. If we can work this to a point to where the town can afford it, then we'll do that. I just want to present you with a proposal to provide public transit here because it's a need. And we can, I'm pretty sure that the previous boards have met with committees or agencies who didn't have a passion. They just wanted to get a service here and probably make money off of it. It's not important for me to do that. However, of course, it's time invested, it's effort invested, it's hard work and labor. It's been since 2013 since I've been working on it. So it's not that I'm coming in here to try to get rich off the town. However, we all know that a service like this is not cheap. It's going to cost money, and if we can start something, there is funding out there to help us. There is funding out there to help the town and myself, but mostly the town, to accomplish this and to make it reality that we have the full service in place. And it's tailored to the town of Hope Mills. That's another thing that's important, that this is tailored.
It was a good presentation, but
Yes,
I mean, really, I'd have to see some figures on how much it's going to cost the town, and you'd have to come back and, I know you're not asking for anything tonight. You're just, giving us a brief overview, but I mean, we really need to see those figures and what it's going to cost the town, and if you could bring those back, and maybe you get with our town manager and she can talk with you, and maybe you can set up a meeting with her if she doesn't mind, and discuss figures with her so she can bring us back those figures at a later date and let us know kind of like what we're looking at having to spend.
But it is important that you all work together to figure out which plan is the best plan. I can come up with figures all day long, but if I'm coming up with figures, it's not going to be tailored to what it is that you're going to end up wanting.
Yeah.
I can tell the figures that I give you might be on one route, and it's the route that you don't want.
Right.
So I need to
I'd
know.
like to see figures on all the routes. I'd like to see detailed figures on every route you've proposed.
Well, I agree.
Yes, sir. Yes,
To
sir.
include Fayetteville Technical Community College.
Okay.
On 103.
Okay. All right. And
If you like I say, if you don't mind, I'm sure Miss Adams would be glad to get with you if you'll give her your information,
Okay.
and at her convenience she'll make an appointment with you, or if she has somebody else on her staff she'd like to put with you to discuss it,
okay.
and then maybe bring us back some figures at a later meeting if that's fine with the board.
Okay.
And then from there, if we can narrow it down to what is affordable,
Yes, ma'am.
and that way it would be easier than, just not knowing for sure. And I agree, it might even be to the point that once we get those figures, might even be to appoint some type of feasibility group to look at it and see where the money could come from,
Yes,
and what we
ma'am.
would need to do. But we do need transportation, and we have looked at this. I know that we looked at this back in 2013
Yes,
with
ma'am.
Spring Lake, because they actually went with Fast Bus, and they
Yes.
also bought their own bus.
Yes.
So I know I've been on committees, regional committees, since my first year as mayor.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something that's new to Hope Mills, and we do know there's a need.
Mhm.
There's a great need, especially for those that don't have ways and means to get where they need to go.
Yes, ma'am.
So I appreciate you being here tonight.
yeah.
And then, I guess, Ms. Adams, would you be willing to set up a time that y'all could get together, or whoever you designate? And then that way you could make a time to come back and make another presentation to us with those figures.
Sounds perfect.
We have his contact
Okay.
information.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir?
may I? I'm
Yes, sir.
sorry.
Commissioner Legg?
Mr. Ellaby,
Yes, sir.
a couple of things I noted here. You talked about you would have maybe your drivers that would clean the buses and everything.
Yes, sir.
What kind of emergency treatment, first responders or CPR or something like that, should you have a rider on there that should have an attack of some kind? Are you prepared to handle that?
Yes, sir. The drivers will be trained, CPR trained, to handle situations of that level, as well as we'll have radio communication. I've been working on that. There's another project that's been successful, and I've been in communication with radio operators that will help me to enhance that. So even though the drivers will be certified, CPR certified, we'll have radio communication to enhance that. So therefore, we can get emergency personnel to them as soon as the driver notices that situation occurs.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yes,
and another thing, you mentioned if a child should miss school bus or something, how's that child gonna get to school if mom and dad are at work and they don't have any money, and it costs $3 to make
And-
that trip?
Yes, sir. And in that, I was looking into, and that's why I had the help of the Small Business Association as well as the students from Fayetteville State to work together a partnership with Cumberland County Schools and other local education providers about working with us as a partner in a partnership and with the town of Hope Mills. It can be with us, with the town of Hope Mills, whichever one they feel comfortable negotiating with, and we can provide something for those students to where they can show a school ID or something of that nature, so that we can identify that they are in fact students and they are in a situation where they need to get to school to receive an education.
Well, you know how some of these students are, if they're running late, they don't have their ID either.
Yes,
You know,
that's and I mean we are willing to make accommodations as things happen. This isn't as I stated before. It's not for me to get rich, or I would hope that it's not for the town to get rich, but it's to provide a service to the community. So if there's a situation that arises and a person is in need, then I would hope that we can make adjustments to accommodate that need.
Okay, you also mentioned something about delivery to local churches and so forth.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How can you do that if you have no Sunday service?
Well, we
Just
do.
a question, that's all.
Yes, sir. We do know that there are points of contacts out there via social media, online websites to give us ways to contact these local churches, whether it be through email, whether it be through phone call, or as I stated before, through a social media platform to where we can reach those churches and try to get this information. Also, I will say this to reiterate on that. I have been in contact with a few local pastors about the service, and they're excited as well. And I did advise them that I'm doing my very best to present this and to see if we can make this a reality. And they was informing me that many of their members are in need of the service. At this point in the presentation, as you saw, I haven't included Sunday service because it's hard enough to provide 5-day service, and the 6-day service we know is needed. But if we can get 7 days, my goodness, would that be a blessing. But at the end of the day, we have to look at what the town can afford and what's the best approach to providing effective service leading up to the long-range transit plan, which is providing full service to the community.
Also, how many units would you be operating? How many buses?
At this time, I have in my ownership 3 full-size fixed route buses, just like the city of Fayetteville operates. There is, as you can see in the pictures, some examples of some buses there on top of the paratransit, the cutaway buses. I have access to those coming up. I have access to those as well that I'm looking to purchase, but I didn't want to purchase these vehicles if I didn't know how we wanted, which service was most attractive to the council. So I didn't want to make unnecessary purchases if it wasn't needed. But I do have the fixed route buses, which I knew if anything, we would start one route. So I knew I had 3 buses in order to maintain that level of service. But as I stated before, I do have access to purchase more vehicles if it came to it. But as Mr. Marley has stated before, that we have to talk about figures, and it's not cheap to purchase vehicles. It's really not. But what I have done is I have used my savings to purchase these vehicles in faith to believe that this is gonna happen. This is gonna happen.
I think everyone sitting up here tonight has made a comment, and they've
Yes,
all
sir.
been very valuable
Yes, sir.
comments that would lead to the possible service.
Yes, sir.
And I have also set up here with some presentations before that we didn't think it was for the best benefit of our residents.
Yes, sir.
It was more of a money grab thing, and excuse my expression, but that was more or less the feel we had at the time. And I agree with Mayor Pro Tem McCray and Mr. Bellflowers as well. The further we can reach out,
Mm-hmm.
we have students here in town who go to those schools over there
Wow.
that really don't have any transportation. And if you miss a day over there, sometimes you miss a week.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
because there's a lot loaded into one day
Yes.
over there. So I thought Mr. Marley asked some very interesting questions as well, including the cost factor.
Mhm.
And I know Miss Edwards has been with the senior group since before they were here. Just a joke.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's not offended by it.
No, I'm not.
She seems like she loves what she does. I've noticed that.
So I know her heart sits right there with the senior group, as all of us
Yes.
are interested in what happens to our seniors. And I think this is one thing we really need,
Yes, sir.
but we need to go through Miss Adams and do the proper thing and find out what kind of funding over and above the cost that you have listed here, if any. Let me say it that way. That might inspire him to keep it down. So that we can try to work something out, because believe it or not, school's going to open up again pretty soon.
Yes.
So
Eventually.
these college students,
We're
and
talking about August 11th.
these people who don't have transportation to and from doctors,
Mm-hmm.
and some of these people who are ill,
Yes.
if they miss a doctor's appointment, that could be the difference of
Yes.
live
Life
and
is
die.
death. Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to see anybody get in that situation.
Yes, sir.
But again, very interesting presentation that you gave, and I'm certainly looking forward to hearing more details in the future.
Yes, sir.
And thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All righty, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Uh-huh. The next item on our agenda is public hearing for A 2020-04, annexation of Sweetwater subdivision on Elk Road. did we have anyone that was for or against this? I don't have anyone on my public comment, but is there anyone out there? And did we get any emails or any kind of and I haven't had anyone contact me either.
No, Madam Mayor, not concerning this annexation public hearing.
No one? All right.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion to close the public hearing. Any other discussions or questions that you may have in reference to this annexation?
Madam Mayor, I don't have any questions, but I'll go ahead and make the motion.
It's
They already did.
Oh, they already did.
It's under new business.
under
Oh,
new business.
okay.
Yep,
Okay,
sorry.
that's all right. All
Good
right,
deal.
we'll move to the next. We have case P20-12, revision and amendment to the Hope Mills sign ordinance. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Mclaughlin.
I'll take this off. Over there choking.
That's your assignment for tomorrow. Mike. You have to stoop down a little bit.
All right, here we go. As you guys are aware, this is the final process in the adoption of the sign ordinance. Just to give you some background information, the previous sign ordinance was adopted on April 15th, 2019. By the previous board, this current board instructed staff to bring the current amendment to you on December 16th, 2019. After that presentation, you directed us to have a work session on January 6th before you directed me to move forward with this proposed ordinance to the Cumberland County staff for consideration. That was done in January. It was supposed to appear on planning board in February of this year. COVID-19 happened. It has been delayed since. On June 16th, 2020, the planning board did hear the case and recommended denial, but I would like to open up the floor to any questions. I'm pretty sure you guys are pretty familiar with this, so I think just a discussion or any question that you may have may be more fruitful than me presenting the regulations that you're already aware of. I will like to, I guess, any of the specifics that you would like to know about the case. I am open to answering those questions as well.
Two comments that I would like to make, and one comment would be that I think the planning board was misled because, I gotta take this off too. I think the planning board was misled in that and a lot of the comments that I heard in reference to this being going backwards. If you'll recall, the board prior to the previous 2-year board had just recently adopted the sign ordinance. In fact, I want to say it was adopted in March of.
We made several. It wasn't that. I think we're getting that when they made the change on the 15th of April in 2019. It hadn't been.
It hadn't been
before
because what had
recent
happened
change
is
for that.
the board that started working on the sign ordinance actually started working on the sign ordinance based on a recommendation for Commissioner Legg about references to those temporary types of signs. And we actually had a committee that never materialized, and then we worked diligently to go through the sign ordinance, and it was approved. And then what happened was a change in board, and the very first thing they wanted to do was to correct or change that sign ordinance. So what has happened now is the recognition of the fact that I-295 and 95 are very definitely going to be economic boosts for Hope Mills. And if a business were to be told that they had to put in a ground level monument sign, it would not work. And what we discovered was, because there was no mention of pole signs in our sign ordinance,
variance.
there was no way that we could allow them, because if you want to allow something, it's got to at least be mentioned. So I just wanted to give that little bit of thought, since I've been with this from the time it was the onset of it in 2012 and 13. And then we went through the process. We had hearings, we had discussions, had things that were added and taken away because of different opinions. And the reason that this was brought forth to the this board was because of the concern of economic development. We've had our economic development committee meetings, and our concern was the 295 bypass. The other thing I'd like to say, and this is something that was brought to my attention by the chairman of the planning board, and the chairman said that she broke the tie to deny this because she has always felt like the representative of the town should be what you go by because they represent the board. She was not aware that this board was in favor of this change. And so had it been that she had been given some enlightenment, she probably would have not broken the tie in the way that was broken to deny it.
One thing I'd like to add to it as well is I want to make sure and caution people not to get so consumed with the pole sign conversation, because there's other aspects of this ordinance that are just as important. I think what you're talking about in terms of some of the erroneous information at planning board, there was a notion that this ordinance just overturned the previous ordinance. Some of the things that people don't realize is when we changed with the April 15th ordinance, we put in regulations that make it a misdemeanor for repeat offenders where we have people putting signs on light poles. We put in regulations that require a professional sign company to actually do your signs. We put in regulations that helped streamline the grandfather clause in case a sign is destroyed. But if you all remember, and I'm pretty sure Mayor Pro Tem McCray can attest to this, how volatile the conversation was last election cycle with political campaign signs. There were a lot of residents that were very, very upset when we were enforcing the regular ordinance regulations that at that time they dictated 3 feet, 15 feet from the edge of pavement. Well, in this ordinance, we streamlined that entire section, renamed it from political campaign signs to temporary commercial signs, non-commercial signs. That was being done to help comply, or at least be in more accordance with the general statute. And there's a lawsuit case that we have to be mindful of as well that would open us up to lawsuits. So I don't want people to get so consumed with the pole signs. Another aspect of it is that the ground signs regulations that were put in by the previous board, they're still in here as well. So we actually didn't overturn any language, we just added to that language. With respect to ground signs versus pole signs, we felt that in light of hearing the feedback from businesses, we felt that we don't want to get rid of ground signs. You just have ground signs or pole signs as viable options to choose from. So we didn't actually get rid of any language from the previous board, we just added to it. But the political campaign sign section is probably the most crucial. I'm not trying to downplay the pole sign piece, but I know for a fact I would personally wouldn't want to go back through the same thing we went back through next election cycle if I'm forced to go back to these citizens who felt we were trespassing, that if we don't do this, our ordinance says 15 feet from edge of pavement with respect to political campaign signs. But I'd like to open the floor to any other questions that you may have.
Other questions or thoughts?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Well, you know it's coming. I agree with some of the comments and then I don't. So I'm just going to state my opinion. The spirit of changing the sign ordinance to ground signs was community appearance. That was the spirit of it in the beginning. And with that said, we look at pole signs. It's either and or. What's presented here, the only part that I disagree with in this ordinance, and I've been very clear and very vocal about my disagreement, so it comes to no surprise to the members of this board, or even to you, Chancellor, is that if we put in pole signs and we give businesses a choice, what choice do you think they're going to take?
To be perfectly honest with you, I haven't seen anything that would lend me to believe that everyone is just going to abandon the ability to put in a ground sign. I think a business would actually analyze what's best suited for their particular piece of property. If you have a situation where you have someone off 95 or a property with severely sloping topography and they feel that they can better achieve advertising
Okay.
with a pole sign, that would be an option. So I don't know if I've heard a post that says that they want to abandon ground signs. I think it's more of a post that tells me they just wanted to have the option of doing both. But that's why I was very, very adamant about not removing the ground sign regulations. I think they're great. I actually don't have an issue with the appearance of ground signs because they're very decorative and things of that nature. I just didn't feel comfortable removing the option outright from someone who may not want to do a ground sign.
Well, the reason I ask that is because the car wash sign, ground signs are very nice. And there's been a lot of favorable comments about those signs by a lot of folks that travel up and down Oak Mills Road. I look at it, if you put an or in this, which is what you got, all you did was add pole signs back in. I think the language at the time was we were looking at the one or two businesses that the ground would prohibit a ground sign. That was how we were looking at it, and how to service those folks. For an example, Pets Plus. And I do have a question of how those signs got up there with this ordinance, but we'll address that in a minute. As an example, and I know about I-295, but those were specific, separate issues of dealing with pole signs that language should address just them. Where the spirit of the ordinance would be primarily ground signs, like we have with the car wash. That was the discussion that we had with this. And I'm not opposed to any other part of this sign ordinance, and you know that, especially the political campaign signs. Well, now I'm got to be careful what I say here, but we definitely don't want to relive that again. But when I look at, if you put, okay, a business has a choice, it's either pole or ground. So that tells me if I go to a steak restaurant, you don't have to shake your head, Commissioner Edwards. So if we go to a restaurant and I have a choice between a ribeye and a sirloin, and I only have so much amount of money, I'm going to go the sirloin. So, that's just my point. And that's why I'm opposed to it.
Yes, Commissioner Marley.
So if we were to approve case P 20-12 tonight, that is what we sent.
This is the only thing that's
Direction
before
we
you
sent you
tonight
with
is
the-
exactly the ordinance that you directed me to send to the county in January. That's correct. The only reason why I took to June was because during COVID,
Yeah.
the county did
But
indefinite
that case,
suspension.
if you approve case P 20-12, that's the ordinance that we directed you to take.
That is correct.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve
Let
case
me-
P
let me-
20-12.
Wait, he's got one question.
No, I just got a point of clarification. I do have the approval motion ready in case that's what the board so inclined. Because it has to be very specific.
Yep. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that in case P 20-12, the Town of Hutt Mills Board of Commissioners moves to approve the text amendment to the Hutt Mills zoning ordinance and find this text amendment consistent with the adopted 2030 Growth Vision Plan 2009 policy Area 10 of the Community Appearance and Image recommendation of reviewing and updating sign regulations periodically to enhance community identity and create a high-quality business image. The proposed amendment is also generally consistent with the Southwest Kremmling Land Use Plan 2014 goal of striving to enhance community appearance and reduce sign clutter along major thoroughfares. Approval of this text amendment is also reasonable and in the public interest because the change to the temporary signage brings the ordinance into compliance with the Reed versus Town of Gilbert Court ruling, and the amendment will enable the town to enforce sign regulations that are consistent with the image the town is seeking to project in their commercial areas.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Yes, ma'am, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Would you go over what the Cumberland County Planning Board did as written in our statement here so I can understand what's going on here?
In a nutshell, initially when these cases are considered by the county, they are on consent agenda for approval. So this case, if you look at your packet, it has a recommendation of approval from Cumberland County staff. So in the event that the planning board moved to deny it, and I'm just gonna be honest, when I'm listening to the discussions, those discussions were not rooted in the analysis of compliance with the policy objectives of the Southwest Plan. It was pretty much rooted in whether or not this board was trying to overturn the previous board. So that's why some of this language may not appear to make sense, because I can't say as a planner that this request is not in compliance with the Southwest Plan. So I'd have to be very creative if I were to draft denial language to say it's not in the public interest, it's not in compliance with policy objectives, things of that nature, it's not in compliance with appearance. I do think the conversation that Mr. Bellflowers had in terms of appearance and things of that nature, I think it's very subjective. But I can't speak to specifically what the planning board's thoughts were. I can only tell you that my recommendation was approval. Planning staff at the county recommendation was for approval as well. And it did not appear that the conversation that was held at planning board was rooted in what we're typically looking at when we are analyzing whether a case is in compliance with the goals and objectives of the Southwest Plan.
What I'm reading here doesn't say that it was a consent agenda. It was a motion was made.
Yes, so in speaking to the consent, it's on consent up until the moment a comment of opposition is submitted. So a comment was submitted in opposition, which is why it was pulled off consent and why it was discussed. Typically, even when you see a case discussed after it's pulled, you typically don't see the planning board go against the recommendation of our staff or theirs. So I would have to say this is a very unique scenario. I don't think I've ever seen the planning board go against the county staff.
And just to add to that, having talked to the chairman of the planning board, anytime the town's representative would speak in opposition, and then you had a sitting commissioner come, she said there was concerns. And so if you'll read the comments, you can see within here, it tells you what was said at the meeting, and there was no discussion about the actual ordinance after.
That's if you
Yeah.
look through the minutes.
If you read the comments, you're going to see that it becomes a declaration about this board is wishy-washy, it's going backwards. So what happened was when the motion was made and the vote was taken, then it was a 4-4 vote. And then the tie had to be broken, and the chairman of the committee says that she was following the recommendation of our representative on the board because she thought that's what the board wanted, and she said even though she did see that our planning staff and Cumberland County planning staff had recommended approval. But you can read that. All the minutes are here within your packet if you read it.
Is it becoming time for us to separate ourselves from the Cumberland County Planning Board again? I mean, we have our own planner. Maybe it's time we start looking at that again.
If you look at the cost factor, we can't. I mean, and I'm speaking of having been involved with this many years, we can't afford to do what they do for us because we'd have to have a mapping department, we'd have to have a unbelievable mailing department. I guess, Mr. Mclaughlin, you could explain why we're not large enough yet to have our own.
In full disclosure, in order for me to be successful, I do have a desire to grow. I'm a one-man show. I think they have a staff of about 5 to 6 as of right now. So to directly answer your question, we would have to analyze the amount of money we spend with the county versus the amount of money we're losing with fees, because we don't get any fees for the processing of the application as well. Those are about $400, $500 an application. So just to give you a number, every time I'm here presenting something, that's about a $500 charge. Sometimes I have about 4 cases on these agendas. So you'd have to analyze if you can get that same number of staff for that same amount if you were to make this decision immediately. I think historically, we did have our own zoning board shortly before I came on board, but I think there was a challenge in keeping the members. Because I think when I got on board, we didn't have a board of adjustment
The
either.
biggest challenge was time, because you'd have, we would meet, they would meet, the planning board would meet, then we'd come back, and we're adding 30 to 45 days, so that many times businesses and even developments, what was happening is it was prolonging the time it took to get it approved or not approved. Either way, you'd have, but that was the biggest concern, is you added a step in there that really wasn't needed when you had a board that could.
And I think as we grow, I mean, my goal is to grow Hope Mills to be the largest second municipality in Cumberland County. And as we do that, I can see that being a long-term goal. I don't know if we're there right now. But, you know.
Yes, sir.
If nobody else got anything, I mean, we're kind of off topic, but
Okay.
I respectfully call for the vote.
Okay, at this time, we have the motion. I'm not going to go back and read the whole motion, but the motion is to approve with all the recommendations required, the revision amendment to the Coke Mill sign ordinance case P20-12. At this time, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? It's a 3-2, and that would mean it passes. So thank you very much, sir. Next, we have case P20-14, initial zoning of 4.16 plus or minus acres to CP planned commercial or to a more restrictive zoning district located at the northern quadrant of the intersection of North County 162 and Service Road 1003 Camden Road, submitted by South Woodland Properties. And I'll turn it over to Mr. McLaughlin.
This one shouldn't require too much discussion. This was a case that you guys officially annexed on March 2nd, right before I think COVID hit, right after that. And so this was another case. You guys directed me to send an initial zoning request in February. You officially approved the annexation in March. It should have gone to planning board in April. It should have come back to us in May. It got froze with the rest of the cases. So this was on that June 16th hearing was a hearing where the county took all the old cases that were in limbo and pushed them through. This was one. This is Caliber Collision. The development is for a 14,675 square foot auto repair facility. We have been in direct communication with the developers. They have actually, they're ready to submit their full construction documents as soon as I call them tomorrow. So this is just a house cleaning item. We haven't had any issues with the development at all. And there is a motion.
And
on
the
second page of
joint
the
Cumberland
staff
County Joint Planning Board did approve this.
Yes, that's
So
correct.
it's approved. Any discussion, any questions in reference to this one?
No, Mayor, I'll just go ahead and make the motion if you.
All righty, and the
The board
motion
would
is
like.
there before you. It's on the,
Second page of staff report.
yes,
Second page of.
Your staff report.
staff report.
Oh, yeah, there it is, yeah. In case P20-14, the Town of Hope Mills Board votes to approve the initial zoning to CP planned commercial and find the request consistent with the Southwest Cumberland County Land Use Plan 2014 designation of heavy commercial. The CP district is also considered a heavy commercial district within the Land Use Policies Plan 2009. The board further finds approval of the request is reasonable and in the public interest, as the parcel is located at a heavily trafficked intersection. The parcel is served by public water, and the parcel was already zoned CP within the county's jurisdiction before it was annexed.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Next, we have public comments, and we do have a reminder that their comments are limited to 3 minutes. They're direct comments to the full board, not to an individual board member or staff member. And speakers should not expect board action or deliberation on subject matter brought up during the public comment segment. Topics requiring further investigation will refer to the appropriate town officials or staff and may be scheduled for a future agenda or for the staff to respond. And the first person we have is Sue Moody. And she has given each of you a sheet that's at your table.
And I'm reading her comment into record.
Okay, you're reading it? Okay.
Yes. Susan Moody, 3647 Lake Forest Road, Hope Mills, North Carolina, 28348. I am speaking to address the issue of the text amendment to the sign ordinance recently considered by the Cumberland County Joint Planning Board. Having witnessed the various public hearings prior to the changes of April 2018, the continued discussion within the community, the election and change of the composition of the Hope Mills Board of Commissioners, and then the request of the newly elected board to Mr. Chancellor Mclaughlin to amend the text of the sign ordinance. I was surprised that there was a public comment in opposition to the change by a member of this board. As is any citizen's right to speak to an issue, the public comment addressed the issue, to include pictures. I was more surprised at listening to the representative of Hope Mills on the Joint Planning Board. These comments did not address the issue. The comments degraded the current board as taking Hope Mills backwards. The 2020 Hope Mills Board of Commissioners was described as wishy-washy way to do government. When watching the meeting of the recent Joint Planning Board, it was very obvious that the concerns expressed by the town representative were directed at this board, not once addressing the merits or lack thereof of the amendment. The concern about the effects of the current sign ordinance on the I-95 commercial corridor was questioned by a JPB member, and I believe the town representative tried to mislead the board by saying she thought it had been addressed. CCJPB staff reread the amendment and informed the board it had not. Another individual on the board then discussed the politics of Hope Mills and said, "I'm not going to vote for this, send it back to them and let them figure it out." Not once were the merits of the amendment discussed, even though the Cumberland County Planning Director read the standard by which the amendment should be considered, not the politics of the municipality. The board did not address those standards. I am encouraging each commissioner to consider your previous discussions. You voted to have staff develop a text amendment to include pole signs. You considered the appearance and clutter in our town and had extensive discussion about the I-95 commercial corridor. You voted in support of this amendment. The only reason the Cumberland County Joint Planning Board voted 5-4 against this amendment was because the town representative was personally against it, and they verbalized their vote was to support her. Their decision is just a recommendation. They wrote the reason for their denial was appearance and too much clutter, after saying earlier that they didn't see why this has become such an issue because there isn't that much commercial business being done in Hope Mills anyways. This reason was never discussed, but was only used to check the box that they had to have a reason. I encourage you to do what is best for our community and its continued economic development and vote to approve the signed text amendment as presented. End
Thank
quote.
you, ma'am.
Madam Mayor, that was already addressed in a previous
Right, she
item.
would not know that, though, as far as public comments, because it was on the agenda. Next, we have Brian Smith. You're going to read that one, too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Smith sent his request via email, and his address is 5747 Crenshaw Drive, Hope Mills, North Carolina, 28348. And he says, and I quote, "Good morning, Jane. I want to send you some comments for tonight's meeting, July 6th. I will not be able to attend in person, But if you would present some points of interest from not only me, but all of the surrounding neighbors at this intersection, Crenshaw and Crampton, and also Sushock and Crampton. The Golf Acres subdivision and surrounding neighbors have signed a petition just to show how much we do not need nor want this opening of Crampton. In less than a week, we have had close to 300 people sign this petition. If and when the subdivision is built on the old golf course property, the developer needs to have access off of Golfview Drive. Having the added traffic come through a small neighborhood to a new subdivision is dangerous. There are multiple crosswalks for Rockfish Elementary, and the added traffic would be putting the children and their parents who walk and ride their bike to school in harm's way. Please, for my family's safety and surrounding neighbors' family safety, do not open or allow this opening to happen. Speeding has always been a problem, and though the town of Hope Mills and Golf Acres subdivision neighbors working through the town of Hope Mills and Golf Acres subdivision neighbors working together, we have slowed it down with request of stop signs and speed bumps. There are still some concerns, but not as many. If a developer has the want to build in the town of Hope Mills, then they should go about it the right way, not trying to put problems on the neighboring community, end quote.
Thank you, ma'am. The next person we have is Michael Gillis. Mr. Gillis, if you'll just please give your name and address, and then,
I will do that.
thank you, sir.
Can I sit this here?
You sure can.
All righty. I have some handouts if y'all want them.
Okay.
Sometimes it's easier to follow along than listen to me stammer and stutter.
Okay.
Just walk up and approach.
Yeah, and just make sure we give one to the clerk and, or the town manager also, just so there's
Okay.
one for the records.
Let me see what I got ready.
Thank you, sir.
Pen messed up on me.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Town clerk needs one if you have an extra one.
On one shot, y'all gonna have to share. Madam Mayor, honorable commissioners, my name's Michael Gillis. I live at 3616 Crampton Road, right here in Hope Mills, Golf Acres. My family and I have resided here for 36 years and love our mostly quiet and sedate little neighborhood. Golf Acres and Brightmoor permanent single-family residential neighborhoods are going to suffer a severe negative impact because of the alleged planned addition of 114 duplex units on the old golf course / YMCA property. What are the potential impacts? The alleged only access point is Crampton Road, the dead end. Is currently a dead-ended road, into the golf course. That would mean alleged 114 families or residents, mostly having 2 vehicles, would increase our traffic and safety substantially. We'd need to have additional stoplights, at least 3. You'd have to have one right there at Crenshaw and Crampton, one at Suchak and Crampton, and then one out there right where Crampton ends into Rockfish Roads. You'd need more speed bumps to control the speeders, especially at the children's crosswalks for the elementary school. To ensure that the laws would be more readily obeyed than with the stop signs that nobody pays attention to right now. More speed limits, speed bumps, and pedestrian caution signs would have to be installed not only on Crampton, but also on each adjacent street that intersects between Crampton and Crenshaw because of the number of children, walkers and runners, etc., who frequently utilize our roads too. One part left out is the 466 vehicles that we estimate the traffic will be, will cause additional traffic delays at our already congested 4 entrances and exits at Suchac and Gulfview. You have Crampton and Rockfish, and then where Bolt intersects with Mulder and then intersects with Rockfish, and then where Casper intersects with Johnson, and you can go either way. Most of the people go left and they'll go to Rockfish. It's just it'll be a nightmare there, especially in the during the peak hours, morning and evening. And also the intersection at Cramshaw and Crampton already has issues with sinkholes. And your Public Works Department just repaired a fairly large sinkhole. And there was a smaller one off to the side that had been repaired somewhere about last year. Virtually, I looked at that sinkhole, and it goes all over the place. So whatever they did as best they could, but I'm sure that whole intersection's got to be replaced because those holes are pretty big going through there. The other thing, number 4, the property values will potentially decrease because you'll have all this continuous traffic back and forth, and who's going to want to buy a home there? I mean, if we decide to sell ours, who's going to want to buy it? What is worth $100,000 today would be worth more like $75,000 after this happens, as an example. Hopefully, it's not that cheap. Especially on not only Crampton, but Crenshaw, Masters, Trevino, Floyd, and all adjacent roads accessible by these people. The alleged increase of transit/rental residents, which is what they are, they're not permanent. There will be a possibility of increase in crime, as well for our already overburdened police force. And let's not forget our overwhelmed or overburdened public works or fire departments. They're stretched to the limit pretty much already. And oh, by the way, I would think that you would have to have a separate access or a better access into that area off of Gulfview rather than the fire department weaving in and out of Crampton, not Crampton Road, but Gulf Acres, just to get to the back area. Same way with the police force, I'm sure. For the future, I predict that all permanent Hope Mills residents will see an increase in taxes to accommodate the 114 transits who are going to move in. Over the past week, there's been a lot of discussion about the 57 proposed duplexes, or 114 individual units, at the Par 4 Village, case number 20088, located at former YMCA property/golf course. Each rental unit appears to be pretty well equipped with parking for 2 people or 2 cars. Each vehicle making 1 to 2 trips a day. That equates to about 456. And at the end of the day, it will be more like 1,200 if the way the government figures that at DOT. I'm not a mathematical wizard on that. But unfortunately, the neighborhood, Gulf Acres, Crampton Road, is the only entrance right now projected for that. That's kind of crazy. In short, it would be much better for all if a separate entrance from Gulfview, just like Suchac is now, would be constructed. This would abate the above, and it would be easier for all concerned in the neighborhood right now and the new neighborhood. And the new, for the, excuse me, Gulfmore and Brightmore, the new residents, and the Hope Mills citizenry and staff as a whole, I believe. In conclusion, I see absolutely no benefit for us as permanent citizens in the particular Gulf Acres Brightmoor area, but I do see the convenience and monetary benefits for the developer, and that's it. And my position naturally is I oppose it 100%. And we have a petition. I'll let my counterparts speak a little bit more about that with the number of people who have already signed. And there's a number of people who are not on the internet that will sign. And I guarantee you, everybody on Crampton alone will sign because they're all permanent party.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for coming this evening.
Okay. Any questions?
Thank you.
So I just want to thank you for coming in and your
Yes,
input.
sir. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Next, we have Richard Lutengall. You just give us your name and address, and then you can speak to the board.
Is it all right to take the mask off?
Yes, sir.
Got driving me nuts. Tell you.
I took mine off too.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Let me introduce myself. I'm Richard Leganow. I live at 5758 Crenshaw Drive, and we've been here almost 50 years. We moved here in December of 1976. The one thing I'm here for tonight is to kind of back up what Mike's been saying. I know he did an extensive job and gave you good reports. I don't have any handouts for you today. I do have a question at the end about if you've received something that I set up as far as a petition reference this topic. Just like to say I am in total opposition to opening up Crampton Road into the Par 4 village that I guess they're going to be calling that over there for the apartments. I think there's be all kinds of problems once that is opened up for traffic. I'm not any way opposed. I'm opposed to building the apartments over there, but the access, entrance, exit from that area is what I'm concerned about. Crampton Road. We've got a real peaceful neighborhood there in Gulf Acres. It's really been a real nice area to live in. We have some speeding problems every now and then. Over the years, we've been able to get speed bumps put in. I'm gonna watch the time a little closer than Mike did. But we had speed bumps put in and it seemed to have curtailed that a little bit. But I can foresee if this place is open, if this apartments are opened up and enters into Crampton, that we will have all kinds of problems with that again. I would like to think I'm speaking a little bit for the people in Gulf Acres and Brightmoor tonight that are not here, because a lot of them I know don't know about this. They have no earthly idea that one day that's going to be possibly opened up to all that traffic that's going to be coming through there. I learned about this last Wednesday. I've known about this for quite a long time, but I didn't know we were this close to it. I saw the plans on next door. Somebody put some plans on there where they how this is going to be, what it would look like. The surveyor had done. You know, the other concern we have is whether or not there will be added apartments put in beyond that, or added housing put in beyond that. And again, that traffic coming out Crampton Road. There's anywhere an estimate around 200 vehicles possibly in that apartment complex coming through our neighborhood. Safety, there's 3 children's crosswalks in Gulf Acres alone. A lot of children are walked to school. Our neighbor across the street walks her 5 kids to school, Rockfish School, every day when it was open. So that's a problem. Significant disruption of the neighborhood. I see speeding, and I talked a little bit about that a little while ago. The speed bumps, a lot of people run stoplights over there, stop signs. The one thing I'll
You can finish.
cut it short. I won't go as long as he did. The fire truck access, you know, I'm a little bit concerned about that. Just thinking this through. I used to be a police officer, so I know a little bit about that kind of stuff. You got the fire truck now. If it's got to get into that apartment complex, it's going to have to come through our addition to get in there, if indeed it's opened up there on Crampton Road. The fire trucks will have to come through the addition to get there. Slows them down. If they come down Golfview and then turn left into when you immediately get into the golf course area, the developer owns part of that property down along that fence. We would recommend that they build that road out there to the Golfview. I know he's going to have to put some turn lanes in, but I'm sorry, I'm more interested in the safety of the people in our neighborhood. But the fire department thing's a thing to look at. I'm sure it'll take them a lot less time to get down there to those apartments from the firehouse rather than going through our addition to get there. And what amazes me about this thing is there's not been any public hearing on it, to open up. I've been reading some information about how this right away is laid out, but I still think that there should be some type of public hearing if you're going to do that much, affect a neighborhood that much. But there's been none. Apparently, from what I understand, you're all going to be looking at this on the 20th of the month in a closed session. And what you do actually during that closed session, I don't know. I guess you either thumbs up, thumbs down, and you can go with it, or they meet all the criteria, and you can go with it, Yeah, I mentioned that already, okay.
Just to let you know, those kinds of decisions cannot be made in closed session. It has to be in a public forum, and it has to be with an audience. So there's not been any decisions made other than the site plan that has been submitted.
So this will be open to the public whenever you decide, vote on
Well,
this?
it'll be just like these other issues that have been brought forth. It'll be brought forth, yes. This is a preliminary, and it has to go through the process, and then it's brought to the board. So right now, it's just in that stage.
Yeah.
And typically speaking, this information would not have been, until it goes through the process, it wouldn't have been put on Nextdoor. It wouldn't have been put out on social media because it has to go through our staff has to go through the planning board. It's just there's a process it has to go through. So that's kind of, I guess,
Madam Mayor, this doesn't go to the planning board.
I mean, our planning staff.
Right, okay.
Our planning staff and we haven't had, everybody in our area has not gone through the process. Is that correct?
No, it's in the initial stages with the county for a request for comments from the applicable regulatory agencies. And I don't know, Ms. Barber, do you want to comment on the process and how these things work?
I think the Chancellor might be better qualified to address
Okay.
it.
Okay.
He's,
Yes.
if the board wants us to address it.
Just hold it. As it relates to different types of cases, if it's a rezoning, that is the typical case that requires a public hearing by law. That requires the notification of the general public within a certain radius of the subject property. With respect to subdivision applications, which is what this is, those do not require public hearings, which is why the only thing taking place now is that the case has been officially filed with the Cumberland County Planning staff, and what they're doing now is sending out a request for comments, as our town manager stated, to all the regulatory agencies who have the approval authorizations through their ordinances. So we'll get a set for a request for comments from my department, planning and zoning. Our stormwater department will have to comment. Our fire department, our public works department, our inspection department. Those are the internal agencies. The external agencies are NCDNR if it's applicable, PWC if it's applicable, DOT if it's applicable. So when there's a period of time, and we haven't actually submitted all of ours yet. But once those comments are received, then those become what the county does is draft conditions of approval, so that when it does appear on this particular board as a non-public hearing item, if you do approve it, these are the legally binding conditions. So if I have, for instance, sidewalks will be required. My comments would be directly related to density and sidewalks. If it's above an acre in size, which it is, Beth Brown's comments will be related to the stormwater requirements and things of that nature. So those comments are collectively gathered and put together in what we call a condition sheet that accompanies the project. But that's where we are now in terms of collecting those comments. And to date, the county has not officially designated the hearing date, but just from my dealings with them, I'm almost certain it'll be July 20th. But we haven't officially made that decision yet. But I have about 5 to 6 different people, this guy, sir, a gentleman here, that I will communicate with just to keep those open lines of communication once we do make that decision on the hearing date.
Okay, thank you, sir. I guess does that help as far as where we are?
Interested in, will there be a public hearing where other people can come in and talk about this before they make a decision? Now, when they make a decision, is it a yes or no that they can do it or not? Can they do that?
A little bit of both. There is a decision that will be made in a hearing environment, but what you're talking about in terms of a public hearing from a legal standpoint, a public hearing is what is required by law that is tied to like a rezoning where they're required to seek people in opposition and support. So this item will appear on a hearing as a non-public hearing item, which meant that the burden of proof for the approval of the agenda does not require input from the general public. Yeah.
But
It's a public meeting.
your opportunity will be during public comments.
Yes,
So just
yes,
like
that's
tonight, if it had been on the agenda tonight, you would have had the opportunity for public comments. But it's actually opening it up and saying we're having a hearing. There's not a hearing for this particular action. Now, I was asked, and I guess, and I didn't look closely, but the current zoning of that property is,
The current zone is P&D, which is Planned Neighborhood Development. That is a dormant zoning. So in our zoning ordinance, the R75 district regulations take precedent in terms of the density and things of that nature. So in terms of the number of units of 114, that density is enforced under the R75 district regulations. It's just an ambiguous section of our code that for P&D zoning, the underlying zone is R75.
and one thing I think is good about this tonight is the fact that by this being televised or on YouTube, what's happening is information is being gathered by our citizens that you wouldn't normally get unless you actually come to a meeting. So that's a plus for us having these meetings taped and then put back on the website. So that would be the other thing, would be for the community to have access to, where this is at this point in time.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Chancellor, and I realize this is, that when this comes to the board on the 20th, this will be a non-public hearing. That's on one side. But on the other side, because this project affects so many of our citizens in not one subdivision, but several subdivisions, Gulf Acres, Brightmoor, and the surrounding area.
Commissioner Bellflowers, I'd respectfully ask that this is not a topic to continue at this point. We're off
Well,
topic.
I would like to finish my statement, Mayor. I would like to say, why wouldn't the board make an exception to allow public hearing?
Because that's
I'm just asking.
that's what the public comments section is for at this point in time.
But, well, you allowed other discussions, but you won't allow my question. Okay.
No, that's
Okay,
not.
no, it's okay.
Hi, I can speak to this question just sort of more generally about
Okay.
what the law allows the town to decide and not decide, and based on the current status of the zoning, the actions that the developer is going to take don't require rezoning or some sort of process where the town, you as a board, have an opportunity to act on it, like to vote. And so as far as what decisions are being made, I believe that they're being made by the staff as to whether this plan is compliant with the subdivision ordinance and with the standards and specifications that the
That's
town has previously enacted. And so if there are folks who have a grievance with a decision that the staff makes through that process, there is a process to pursue that, but it's, the board unfortunately can't act beyond the powers that are given to it under the law to restrict a developer from taking an action that the developer is entitled to take for their land. If it's not otherwise prohibited, or something that comes before the board with a public hearing.
And what she's speaking to, in layman terms, the burden of proof for a subdivision and a site plan approval are all non-public hearing items, or if they're in compliance with the underlying zoning. So if we're talking about the subdivision and the zoning, it's whether or not it meets the subdivision ordinance. If we're talking about the Crampton Road issue, which is the main issue here, that's really technically governed by the standards and specifications manual, which is enforced by the Public Works Department. It really has no, I have no approval authority over the streets. It's only if whether or not the street that they're proposing is in compliance with the standards and specifications manual.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Can the board, after all what's been said here, can the board, bottom line, for whatever reason, because of the citizens and the problems we think is going to be coming up in our neighborhoods if this road is open, can they disapprove that and say, no, you can't do that? They can't both do that. Legally.
I mean, Dan Hartzog, the town attorney, reviewed this, and no, we don't believe that there's a legal way for the board to do that.
Thank you.
One other thing.
Okay.
I'd just like to thank you guys for your time. I really appreciate it. The one question, did you get the petition that was sent? I sent it to everybody. I used the email addresses off the Town of Hope Mills website, and I wanted to make sure that everybody got those.
Yes, sir.
So there is some concern and there's some interest in this, and I imagine it's going to get bigger and bigger as we move towards the 20th. We're seeing that, and now you're telling me that we can come back for a public, and you're probably going to end up with more. I'm hoping we're out of this situation where we can come in here, but I don't know.
Yeah,
You know, I don't know how that
and
works.
it would be the same method, and we did have some this evening that their comments were read into the minutes.
Yes.
So it can be done that way, but the main thing would be is if we're still under the circumstances, then it'd be done just like you've done tonight.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll try to get people here. We'll just have to wait a little while, I guess. But I think the last time I looked, there was 269 people that signed this petition. So
That was the question
you,
I was
sir.
gonna ask. Those are all voting citizens?
I don't know. I'm gonna be real honest with you, how that came about, and I'll cut it off there just to answer Mr. Lake's question here. Last Wednesday, when I saw that what was going on with the plans and everything, I remembered that about 6 months ago somebody had used a online petition service for whatever issue they had. Well, I went online and I said, well, let me use that, change.org. So I went on there and signed up for it and everything and put in the petition. And I didn't think, probably wouldn't get much out of it, but it started ballooning. And I noticed a lot of it, most all of them are from Hope Mills, but there is some people from out of state, why they're on there or not. There was Elise Craver, I believe her name was. She used to be on the board here. She's in Charlotte. She signed it. But I can't tell you whether or not these people are from Gulf Acres or Brightmoor, but most all of them are saying Hope Mills. So I don't know. That's all I know about it. To go out and get signatures in this day and age right now, going from door to door, good luck. People are not going to answer the door, and it's probably pretty dangerous to do that. Okay.
I believe
Thank you
Mr.
for your
Kramer
time.
still
Thank you,
lives on
sir.
the other side of the lake, doesn't she?
Yeah.
They had Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of, you know, but maybe just people putting different addresses in there to whatever reason.
Okay.
But anyways, thanks again for your time.
Thank
Okay,
you for
thank you,
coming,
sir.
sir.
Thank you. Next, we have Julie Warfel. Did you give your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Julia Warfel, and I live on 3509 Crampton Road. I'm 3 houses in from you all on Crampton Road. And I'm very concerned about Crampton Road becoming the road to go back to the new buildings at the end. And I just wanted to say my concerns are with the school openings, that there is one on Crampton Road where parents do come there every morning when schools open, and they walk across Crampton and into the walkway to the school, Rockfish Elementary School. And they take parents park across there. And I'm also I have 5 grandchildren that I babysit 2 days a week while their parents are at work, and 3 of my grandchildren ride their bikes right out in front of my house. They've been able to do that for many, many years. And I'm concerned that if we get all these vehicles going down there, they won't even be able to do that anymore. They ride down to Crampton and onto a cul-de-sac, and they go over there and play, and then they'll come back to my house. And I've lived on at 3509 Crampton Road for 24 years. We moved our family here for the small town feel and the excellent schools that are here in Hope Mills. And that was 24 years ago. And we're still here. We love it here. And I'm afraid that our schools will also be overcrowded by this development, duplex community. And my one last concern that I have is how busy Rockfish Road is already at a point where Rockfish Road is so busy most of the days. During the morning rush and the evening after work, I cannot even get out off of Crampton Road and go to Golfview Drive. There's many times, and I'm sure if you all are here working and you're trying to get out and go the other way, you're not doing it. You just can't do it. So it's already, Rockfish is already packed. And so I just wrote on here that I always have to turn and head toward the IGA and then turn and go wherever I need to go. So sometimes I cannot even get out and come this way as it is. So I was just asked to talk since I came over to see what was going on, and I appreciate you all letting us speak. And I just hope that that road is not the road that you all use. Like I said, I really enjoy living where I live, and my grandchildren really love it. So thank you for letting us speak.
Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you.
That concludes our public comments. Next, we have our consent agenda. Is there anything you want moved from the consent agenda to new business? If not, do I have a motion to approve consent agenda as it is before you?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. We do not have any old business this evening. New business is consideration and possible action on the adoption of annexation ordinance A 2020-04 Sweetwater subdivision. This is behind tab 10. Any discussion in reference to this? Any questions for Mr. Mclaughlin? This is the development that will be off of Elk Road.
That's correct.
Make a motion, we approve annexation ordinance A 2020-04.
I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second that we approve annexation ordinance A 2020-04, the Sweetwater subdivision. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. Next, we have case number 20-075, consideration of Hope Mills Tires, C1P site plan review. Hope Mills zoning ordinance is zone C1P, acreage .34 acres, located at 5617 Rockfish Road, Service Road 11112, and it's submitted by Mr. Alsady.
Yes.
And I'll turn this over to. Is it,
Oh, yeah,
yeah, he can come in.
It's probably one of the.
Is it the developer?
Yeah, I think so. All right, as indicated earlier, this is case 20-075. As it relates to the background, this property is addressed at 5617 Rockfish Road and zoned under the C1P district. It's an existing vacant commercial structure that recently operated as a gas station. I think when the Circle K gas station came in catty corner across the street, what I've seen with the Circle K's is typically they go in an intersection and they close out the gas station across. If you recall, the gas station that's the Circle K off Cumberland, the gas station across of it shut down. Same tire place there is the tire place here. It's approximately 101 feet of frontage along Rockfish Road and 160 feet of frontage along Hill Street. Developer proposed to convert the existing structure to a service station operation for tires and services that do not include repair and body work. So it's really just a tire shop similar to the one that's operating on Cumberland and Main, but because of the nature and the level of renovations, this will require sidewalks. This is an aerial view. Again, it's at the intersection of Rockfish and Hill Street. And this is a copy of the proposed site plan. I'd like to open up the floor to any questions that you may have.
Anyone have any questions in reference to?
Yes, ma'am, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
You said there would be no auto repair, or is there going to be some kind of repair?
When this proposal indicates no automobile repair and body work, that indicates to me that the only thing they can do here is change tires. That's similar to the tire
How
shop.
about brakes and tune up the oil changes?
Then I would consider that to be not allowed.
Ma'am,
Yes, sir.
and they understand the sidewalk requirement.
Yes, they do. They had to put a sidewalk in for the Cumberland one as well.
Okay.
Now, I will say for the Rockfish piece, what I have seen our board do, well, not this board, the Board of Adjustment, if you recall, there was a proposed daycare across the street at this O&I piece of property. It never moved forward. It was approved, but the applicant was granted a variance from the sidewalks that were required along Rockfish and Garfield because of the project DOT is doing where they're putting in the sidewalk. But she had to actually get her approval as a daycare center through special use permit, and she had to apply for a variance. The Board of Adjustment utilized that information to grant her for the variance. The project just never moved forward. With that respect, they could take that approach on Rockfish Road. I'm not sure, but they are aware that they are required to put in those sidewalks on Rockfish Road and Hill Street,
And
similar to what they had to do at
Yeah.
the other piece.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
just to make sure I'm clear, and this goes back to Commissioner Legg's earlier question, the only thing they're going to be doing here is changing tires and selling tires.
That's correct.
And nothing else.
Based on the request, that is correct.
Nothing else but tire related.
Based on
No
what
brake work, no alignments,
based
no oil
on
changes.
what their application has indicated, it specifically says that they're not basically doing any body work on cars. It's just changing tires
Okay.
and
that
selling tires.
Both sidewalks. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Any other questions?
Make a motion we approve case number 20-075.
Have a motion to approve case number 20-075. Do I have a second?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a second with a small amendment on it, that we include in that it's for tires only. Can I do that? Will you accept that?
That'll be fine.
Okay,
No repair work.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
all right.
Yeah. Mhm.
So the second's okay with that? Did you second it? Yeah, so they'll be including they'll be including in the motion that it is to include tire work only. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed, motion carries. Next, we have consideration and possible action on outdoor dining policy. This is behind tab 12. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Mclaughlin.
All right. As it relates to outdoor dining, try to cut this short, but it's some pretty useful information I think you guys will be interested in hearing. As the negative impacts of COVID-19 or the novel coronavirus spread throughout the world, many have identified the restaurant industry as sustaining one of the heaviest blows of collateral damage. As widespread panic and reaction to the outbreak increased, many citizens have found alternative methods of providing food, causing steep declines in businesses for eating and drinking establishments, with some businesses having to close outright. Many digital systems such as Yelp, DoorDash, and others have also aided in providing useful data to assist in identifying declines in sales and additional negative trends. As the outbreak continued, casual dining reservations were down 31% and continued to plummet. As state of emergency orders were instituted and inside dining was prohibited, many citizens began choosing groceries over takeout options, which further increased declining sales for restaurants. As the curve for COVID-19 began to flatten in recent months, state of emergency orders have been relaxed, allowing restaurant dining areas to reopen, but at half capacity, with some establishments still opting for drive-through services only. Over the past month, staff has noticed an increase in the desire of restaurant owners to consider outdoor dining as a viable option to provide increased seating, but in a manner that still complies with regulations tied to social distancing. The lack of regulations outright in our that outline or govern outdoor dining as a permitted use in the Town of Hope Mills zoning ordinance, staff would like to explore language that allows for the temporary utilization of outdoor dining during the time that emergency orders tied to COVID-19 remain in effect. The following regulations would only be applicable on a temporary basis, with staff moving to adopt a full amendment to the zoning ordinance at a later date once the spread of the coronavirus has diminished. This approach would also allow staff to study how outdoor dining is received by patrons, to give more insight on better ways to regulate the use once a time has come to adopt permanent legislation in our ordinance. As it relates to permitting, staff proposes to allow eating and drinking establishments to offer and operate outdoor dining and beverage service options through the approval of temporary outdoor event permits. I'll stop there before I get into the regulations. I've contacted just about every municipality in this region to kind of gauge what they're doing. And what I've found is that the options are across the board. Village of Pinehurst, they took the approach that in their downtown area, their on-street parking between 8 and 5 can be used with tables and chairs, right in the on street parking. I talked to Apex. They tried that, or they are attempting to try it in their downtown areas. But what's different with our town is we don't have a downtown area with a food establishment in our trade street, so most of our restaurants would be your standalone districts like Samuel's or things of that nature. Apex is having some challenges with approaching that avenue, so they're opting to just do it in their downtown areas. Cumberland County, City of Fayetteville are moving to allow them in this manner, where we have outdoor temporary permits that you allow them to operate under just during this time period, but you still have to meet the regulatory controls that I'm getting ready to go through now. First, your setbacks as an application for a temporary outdoor permit, it must also include a site plan that outlines the proposed location of the outdoor dining area and must comply with setbacks of the existing zoning district. Social distancing. All proposed outdoor dining areas must also comply with current emergency orders that regulate social distancing at 6 feet. In terms of licenses, establishment must be properly licensed and permitted and must be in compliance with all necessary state and local regulatory permits, including ABC permits. Service and consumption of alcohol beverages are limited to the interior boundaries of this outdoor dining area. In terms of seating capacity, the outdoor food and drink service seating capacity is limited to 50% of the current indoor seating capacity of the establishment. So if you recall, currently under the stay-at-home orders or the emergency orders, an eating and drinking establishment can only operate at half capacity. This outdoor dining area is regulated to half of that. In terms of location, outdoor dining area must be located on the same parcel of the requesting establishment. You must also comply with the NC Department of Health and Human Service regulations applicable to outdoor food and drink service. A clear delineation in the form of a fence or other barriers must be established to clearly identify the boundaries of the outdoor dining area. And lastly, as it relates to parking, this is crucial. Existing parking spaces may only be utilized to provide outdoor dining if the parking requirement tied to half capacity orders are still met. An establishment may not reduce parking below the number of spaces required to meet indoor half capacity. Likewise, parking must also be provided to meet the increased number tied to additional seating provided through the outdoor dining. So what this basically means is that the permitting process, it would still come to me as an outdoor tent event. What we typically do right now for outdoor event permits, we do if a church wants to have something on their property outside, the TNT guys that come around the 4th of July, Christmas where you have the Christmas trees and things of that nature. So it doesn't require board approval, but based on this policy, I would still require a site plan to be submitted so that I can ensure that it still meets the same regulatory requirements that any development would do. But this is just a suggestion. I think this is just options of language that, based on what I've seen and what I've researched in other municipalities, this appears to be the best approach that I've seen the county and city of Fayetteville take as well.
Yes, sir.
I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
I think it answered my question in location, but under licensing, where you talk about service and consumption of alcoholic beverages are limited to the interior boundaries of the outdoor dining area. You can have alcohol outside in the outdoor dining, correct?
Yes, it just means that I can't go outside of that area into my car.
Can't go
And
outside that
the
fence.
reason why that's in place is because my friend can't come and just talk to me on the other side of the parking lot, and I can walk out there with my drink.
But I just wanted to,
yeah.
just want to make sure that they could serve alcohol in that outdoor
They could
dining
serve
area.
it, and that's where the clear delineation aspect comes in, because you have to clearly define that area so that, and you have to dummy proof some of these things so that you kind of regulate out any naysayers that could violate it. But what I'm hoping to do is, the reason why I'm asking for this to be temporary is so that I can study the response from the general public. Maybe this doesn't turn into something that the general public likes. I know I've gotten a calls from about 4 businesses that want to see how they could possibly do it. Some of the actual properties are challenged because I don't think they can meet the setback requirements. I don't know if they have enough parking to reduce their parking to be able to do this, but these are the systems of checks and balances that we need to have in place so that you don't create public safety issues, that you don't create issues where you're putting something out of compliance to be able to do this. So we still have checks and balances, but I'm hoping to do is after all this is over, this now becomes a request to make this a permanent amendment to our zoning ordinance. So I'm not asking for an amendment to the zoning ordinance as of yet, because this may not actually work. But in the event that I can study this as a case study, there may be regulations that I have in this policy that may work, some that may not. But when this is over, I can come to you with a package of things that I've studied that actually do appear to be favorable, that we can then ask for a full amendment to our zoning ordinance.
And what I would like to chime in on this is that I know that there's many of our businesses are struggling.
Yeah.
And this now requirement, some of them are not opening up their dining rooms because just the requirements to open it up and that they can't seat enough people that's easier just to use the drive-through. And then there's some businesses that because they've been closed so long, I know that trying to reopen, they're having a tough time. And I can tell you that it's sad for Hope Mills, because many of our small businesses are the ones that are being affected, and the ones that have been tried and true. They've been here with us, for a long time. So I'm thankful that you came up with something that would work. And like you said, it might be after the temporary period, it might be that some of them would, once everything can open back up, they may not want to do the outside dining, And I'm looking at the weather right now, as hot as it is, you're finding probably some people would, would
It's almost a catch-22,
Yeah.
because one thing I am reading is that most of them are simply trying to expand their eating areas. But to do it comfortably, you might have to spend some money to put an awning over it and ceiling fans. So it's a touchy situation, but I think this does give them options. But I do not feel comfortable, because some municipalities just do it outright. And I'm like, no, I don't think that's going to work. If you will allow it, it's temporary. I have to have some systems of regulatory controls like I would have any other use. But one thing I noticed in our ordinance, outdoor dining is just covered under, it's not even explicitly outlined and called out in our ordinance. If I approve a restaurant like Chick-fil-A, they can put outdoor dining out front as long as it meets the setbacks. But we don't have language that says these are the regulatory controls for outdoor dining. So even after this is over, I still want to explore, because in my world, vagueness is bad. If I don't have regulations to govern things, that's how things slip through the cracks and things of that nature. So I do think regardless of what happens, we probably should have some language, but this is a perfect case study for us to determine, okay, is this actually something the general public really would jump on? And if we now see a bunch of restaurants thriving again because they have these outdoor dinings, and dining areas, I think we're on to something. If not, then after this period is over, we just go back to where we were before.
Any questions or
Madam Mayor.
comments? Yes, sir.
Can I ask you just a couple of questions for you, please? Does this particular business meet the setback requirement?
Which particular business are you talking about?
Well, I'm speaking of Chef Glenn's.
No, that's not. He doesn't. I think we've issued an official notice of violation. His current area is in the setback area, so this ordinance wouldn't help him. We actually are having conversation with him about just giving us some ideas on. He has the ability, if I were to just from an engineering and design standpoint, he has the ability to put outdoor dining on that site. He has, I think, 81 parking spaces. He's only required to have 24. I think just the location he had it, I don't think that there will be a way to redesign that to put that area in front of that in compliance with the setbacks. Now, if he asks for a variance,
have to go out back. I don't know.
I've actually kind of pitched an idea of something even better, but I can't get into designing it for him. I do think there's a better alternative than putting it in the back, because you got to realize too, if he puts it in the back, to get access to it as a patron, I got to walk through his kitchen. So we were having that conversation. I do think there's a viable way for him to do it that does not violate the setbacks, does not violate the parking, that actually probably would be a better enhancement than where it is now. But this doesn't actually rectify
Just a
the problem.
technical question that I have, and it's because, of course, this has been brought to the attention, and so I looked. Was not the original thought that, and maybe you have to correct me, but I don't believe the plan that's with the county shows the improvements that Juan made when he enlarged Mclaughlin. So that the front of Mclaughlin, which would be the front now of Chef Glenn's, was not put on any site plan. So if you look at what was there, the setback was there.
And then they expanded Camden.
And then
that happened as well.
So what I'm thinking is probably the previous restaurant was in violation.
I think it's more of, I don't think the previous restaurant was in gross violation.
Right.
I think what exacerbated the existing condition, I think Camden was wide.
Right. I was just wondering how it happened that it doesn't show up the expansion of the previous restaurant. Because if you look at what was there, what you're seeing is the first footprint for the first, which was Mecasitas.
Yeah.
And then Mecasitas expanded, then Buckhead went in. So I think that was a concern that some had, was that is there any way of allowing this through this temporary time since they've spent money, time, and effort to put it there under the assumption that it was okay.
To be honest with you, I talked to DOT. I don't think they have any direct concerns from a public safety standpoint on Camden. We even analyzed it from a standpoint of where the area he put the parking, did it violate anything? So I literally walked the site. That's why I came up with the numbers. He's required to have 24 spaces. He took out 4 to put this out there. He has 81. So even if this was it, but I think it's all hinging on the setback with that piece. He could apply for a variance. That would have to go to the Board of Adjustment if he wanted to reduce that setback area to keep it there. But as it relates to this ordinance, this is just something I think would apply to any business in the town in a way that we would regulate, because even though outdoor dining isn't explicitly outlined, if you are providing it, you still would have to meet all these regulatory controls. So I'm not adding anything in there that a normal business wouldn't have to apply to. The real gem in this is allowing it through a temporary outdoor event permit, which is what other municipalities is doing. Yeah. But I still have to have these regulatory controls. It's almost like if I'm doing a food truck approval, that doesn't come to the board, but they still have to give me their health department approval. They still have to give me their liability insurance. They still have to give me the site plan that shows the distance and things of that nature. So we still have those checks and balances in place. But just from an economic development standpoint, I am working with Chef Glenn to figure out a solution to, because I think he's a good guy. I think he does have the great intentions, but I think there's a possible different way we can design that puts him in compliance with this ordinance and a permanent ordinance that does rectify that issue along Camden.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I have a concern that somebody's gonna get hit by a car out front.
Yeah.
You know, if a car loses control or they have an accident and one veers off the road, I'm concerned about that as well. And there's no life worth a dollar's worth of burgers, you know what I mean? There's no life worth in that. And a little bit of background on that building, Madam Mayor. I built the original building that was there when it was a fish fry, country fish fry type deal. I know the back part of it was in compliance because I purchased the permits and everything for it.
That was the original building, yes,
That
sir.
was the original building. Then Mecasitas bought it, they added on to it one time, then they added on to it again. So I have a little bit of background on that building as far as, I don't remember when it was built, but it was several years ago. But it's been added on to a few times since then. But it may not be in compliance now, but it was then.
And one thing that I just thought about too, if we start getting permits for these, I can roll them into updates on the manager's report, so you guys are still up to speed on
that would be helpful.
Restaurants that have been approved. Because I think, one of the things I don't want to do is that you're seeing all this outdoor dining, you don't have any way of knowing who's approved and who's new. So as we move forward, if I get an application to approve one, I'll roll it into weekly updates with our managers.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Chancellor, your policy is a starting point. So I guess my question would be just a point of clarity. With a policy like this, does it have to go to Kremmling County Planning for any opinion? Or?
The minute we go to, now in terms of just this, we had extensive conversation with county staff, but in terms of going to the planning board,
not planning board, county staff.
Yeah, just county
Let's go
staff.
there.
Yeah, I mean everything we do, we pretty much have a very extensive conversation with Betty and Ed. We had actually been talking about this prior to you guys directing me to do a policy. To be honest with you, I've been kind of toying with an outdoor dining policy for about a month. But in terms of this specific policy, the outdoor dining piece as a temporary event permit, that actually is how the county and City of Fayetteville is doing it. So we did have extensive conversation with county planning staff.
Okay, so they render an opinion with you then, I guess.
It's not something official where I send them like a request for comments for an opinion, but we do have philosophical planning conversations about
Okay.
what would work, what wouldn't work, and things of that nature.
Is there any consideration to, I know the city of Fayetteville's outdoor dining is actually all the way to the curb. If you go down Hayes Street, you'll see that if you're worried about somebody being hit by a car, theirs goes.
That's why I said when I'm looking at ordinances, it's across the board.
Yeah, but that's 20 miles an hour through hay.
Well, I'm just saying that there's other areas that.
Like I said,
an accident
was
could
it
happen.
Camden?
I think we need to-
Pinehurst or was it Southern Pines? With the
Village of Pinehurst.
Village of Pinehurst literally said on-street parking in the street. They closed
Yeah.
the street off.
But they have a larger
Yeah, downtown.
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
has
yeah.
dining
Yeah.
establishments.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
So it technically wouldn't be practical off Trade Street because we don't have a restaurant off Trade Street.
Right.
So that environment that we're talking about in Pinehurst isn't the same as Camden
No.
Road.
No, it's clearly not Camden
And
Road.
in a lot of more urban areas, you have 20 to 25 foot wide sidewalks. And what you also have in these urban areas is a requirement that at least maintain 5 to 10 feet of clear pedestrian space unobstructed. So if you're looking at Piero's, one of my favorite restaurants, or Antonelli's, the fence for the outdoor dining area does come out, but there's still enough space in the sidewalk for me to walk by. So those are things that I'm saying based on how it has to be done relative to our town. We still have to have these regulatory controls in place just to make sure it's not a public safety issue, just to make sure you're not going out of compliance with another regulation, because the first thing they'll do is take all the parking away and put outdoor dining, and now you're in violation of the parking requirement.
Right.
So there are things that we are kind of go back and forth to make sure that you're not opening up another Pandora's box by
I
trying
know
to
we gotta
give you
move forward, so, do we need a consensus of the board to ask him to bring something back in the form of,
We need to just approve this.
Yeah, in
So
a
he
nutshell.
can move
Yeah.
forward
If
with
you guys
this,
are okay with this,
Because
you
this
just
is
give me
just a
authorization. to-
temporary solution, and then we'll bring back something
And the
after
key
this
is
over
this: it's only applicable during the time. Not a minute. Our governor opens restaurants back up full service. This goes away, and then at that point, I possibly would be able to come back to you with some data to say, "Hey, I approved 5 of these. I approved 10. I've seen an increase in sales with this restaurant, stuff like that." If I can't show justification, then we do nothing when it's over. But if I can justify moving forward with more legislation, when this is all lifted, that's when I'll come to you with a recommendation to draft something that goes to the county staff for an amendment to the zoning ordinance.
Madam Mayor, I like the 6 bullets, and I'll go ahead and make the motion. We approve the proposed policy for outdoor dining.
All right, I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. Next, we have discussion and possible action on formation of a Hope Mills Millennial Advisory Commission or committee, and it's requested by Mayor Pro Tem, which I'll turn this over to you so you can explain what you're wanting to do.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On last week, I met with Mayor Pro Tem Kathy Jensen of Fayetteville City Council. She was the liaison. She's no longer the liaison, but she was the liaison for some time for the Fayetteville Millennial Advisory Commission. And this was something that was just very passionate and dear to me. It's something that I always wanted to do. But during the times that we live in now, I thought it was really the appropriate time to maybe propose something like this for the town of Hope Mills. In your packet, you'll see I have the bylaws for the Fayetteville's Millennial Advisory Commission, but I would like ours to have a little twist to it. I also looked up the Durham's Cultural Advisory Board that has a cultural and arts policy that is linked into it. And of course, I know Durham and Fayetteville are much larger than Hope Mills. And so in the wording where you would see Fayetteville or Durham and things that do not apply to us, then they wouldn't apply to us. But pretty much the purpose is dedicated to improving the quality of life for young adults. And there's a number of things here. One of the the things that I like is that the first bulletin under the Fayetteville Commission bylaws is advise the city on economic development, on social matters, as well as potential actions affecting young adults and city residents. There's also a mentorship program for young adults. Of course, it says Fayetteville, but that would be Hope Mills. They would network with different people in the community to include the Hope Mills Chamber, Fort Bragg, VFW, American Legion, Kiwanis, law enforcement, and the Department of Social Services, just to name a few, and the Fayetteville Cumberland Arts County as well. And I'm really just hoping and asking for your blessings, and if you all had any suggestions and questions about this commission.
I got one.
Okay.
I think it's good. I mean, I don't have no problem with it. But at our last meeting, I noticed it says commission. At our last meeting, we voted to do away with commissions. Could it be called a committee? And if it's a committee, then the mayor can appoint a committee or form that committee, or what am I trying to say, Mayor? You have the authority to appoint committees, correct?
But I think your request, this to be a standing committee. So she would want this added to our standing committees. So we'd have to go through the process of putting it as one of our regular committees.
Yeah.
So the process would be to develop this with Hope Mills wording and then present it to be added to our committees. Am I correct? I asked the attorney in town.
I think so, and it would I think it would also have to meet the requirements, that our current committees have to meet, such as living in town, the number of people, most all of our committees, I think with the exception of the Veterans Affairs, is limited to 7 people, I believe.
Correct.
Correct.
And live in this town limits. So we would need to make sure that the formation of this committee, that all of those guidelines would be met, that the other committees.
And then approved to add to our,
And then what we could do is work with we'll take the items that Mayor Pro Tem McCray has submitted, and I can get with our attorney and make sure that those things are met, and then we can bring this back for approval, and then we would advertise for
membership.
membership.
Now, is there a criteria for membership in there? Is there an age? Did they list an age?
That's open for discussion and feedback from you all. I see on Fayetteville they have between ages of 19 and 39, but if you actually look at the definition of millennial, it goes anywhere from 23 to 38 to 26 to 40. I kind of like the 19 to 39 just because if
We
they
need
come
that
from
in-
your mayor's coalition, at
could
least we
come
can
right
have at
into
least one person that will be represented on that
Well,
committee.
that's what I was going to say, is that's an age group that we need to focus on, and they're very active, and we've got several groups that are very active in Hope Mills, so I'm sure we could pull that age group in.
19 to 29.
19 to 39.
39.
39.
Sorry.
Mayor,
Yes.
can we just get a consensus of the board and
Tell
have the mayor,
Mayor
the
Pro Tem.
manager bring it back to us with all those questions answered and let her check and then bring us back a finished product, then we can vote on it?
Yeah.
That'd be fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, and I think the good thing would be is maybe by the time this one can be approved, that'll be time for the mayor's youth leadership, if school, depends on what happens with school. And we could even have some joint types of things that I think would be a good thing, because my age group would be, some of them are 18 or 19. Depends on if they're seniors.
And for clarification, I'm not trying to kill it, I just seen commission, and I know our last meeting,
Well,
we
I
did
think-
away with that, so.
Madam Mayor, and that's why I put commission committee, because I didn't know if we were going to go forward with
Yeah.
that, so that's why I put committee
Yeah.
slash commission.
Well, and committee is easier to get listed because a commission has greater powers than a committee does, so that's a good thing.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
that was my question too, was I just wanted to make sure this was a permanent standing committee and not an ad hoc committee.
Yeah, this
And
would be a
I think
permanent,
that was,
yeah.
may have been where Commissioner Marley was, on the different committees. But I think it's a great opportunity.
Well, and it's an age group I think we need to work with.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's an untapped resource that we have here in the community. It would really be an opportunity for involvement.
Yeah,
See where
Mayor,
it goes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jensen said they had, I think she said they had like over 200 applications.
Yeah.
Again, I know we're not the city of Fayetteville, but I just hope that there's a wide variety of different people, and I'm hoping I can get them from different age groups, different
Yeah.
careers, people that may have been here all of their life, and then people that are transplant into the community, because I think that they can just give us a lot of vacancies. I know I'm not a millennial. A lot of people think I am a millennial. I'm not a millennial.
I thought you
Right
were.
around the corner from being a
I
millennial.
thought you were.
No, I'm not a millennial. But I think just sometimes they have really good ideas, and Mayor Pro Tem Jensen gave me some tips on some things that, you know, she felt like they can improve on, that maybe we can work on out the gate. There's just different things. So it was a really good conversation, and I hope we do get a lot of interest. I hope the community rallies around it, and it's something very positive, and that they do some positive work, and it's nothing political. It's just people in the community, young people in the community wanting to do and contribute to good work.
Mayor, does that need to be put in the motion? If so, I'll make a motion.
We need a motion?
Does that require a
I
motion?
think a
to do?
consensus, because I'm gonna bring,
You'll bring it back
She's
to
gonna be
us to make a
drafting.
motion.
She's gonna be drafting.
So everybody's
Yeah, I
okay
think
with
it's
this?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All righty. Okay, well, very good. Great idea. Like that. All right, the next thing on the agenda is what I added to the agenda, and it's very appropriate that this came at this time because with all of our comments that we had, I go on record as saying I'm a firm believer in partnerships. I'm a firm believer in working with everyone to build consensus, but also to see if we can't come up with something that benefits the citizens, benefits developers, and benefits Hope Mills. I have a proposal of a committee that I would like to form, and the members of that committee would be from our town manager and our town planner, possibly me as a representative of the board, since I don't have to vote on things. I would also have a representative from DOT. I'd have the representative from the townhomes developer that's being built on former YMCA property, and would also have the representative from the 30 adjacent acres owners. I have been trying to do something as far as be proactive to come up with a solution. I am concerned about the development that's going in the stub of Crampton. However, that is something that I don't think anybody in that neighborhood ever anticipated, because the long-term plan for the YMCA was for it to remain ball fields, and because it was a good flat service, it was going to stay with the town. But the YMCA chose to sell it so they could have the money to move it forward with their development. So what I'd like to do is I would like to form a committee to pursue a joint driveway, that driveway would be shared by the town, by the developer for the townhomes, and by the owners of the 30 acres, so that what we could do is have one driveway off of Goffview Road, that could be then shared cost and shared as far as the need. I'm looking at and have been so involved with FAMPO that I can tell you that the distance between Sushak and the easement, which most people have not looked at, the easement for the 20 acres, the reason why it's not feasible is because that easement just comes out into the parking lot, and then it shares the driveway with the 30 acres. So the 30 acres would have to be come into play with that developer. So the thought is, put everybody to the table, have them talk with DOT, have them talk with our planner and with our town manager, and everybody's on board to do this. All I need is for the board to say it's okay, and then hopefully it'll be a win-win for us, because they'll come back with a shared driveway. It'll be split, the cost will be split 3 ways, and what will happen also is then that solves our problem. Because if they were to put, what I'm looking at, if they were to put in a driveway, then we're not going to be allowed another driveway. If they were to put in 2 driveways, there's no way those 2 builders could have 2 driveways. So the only option for the townhomes would be Crampton. But this way, maybe access could be gained on Goffview for all 3 of us, and we'd all live happy ever after, because it would save us all some money. Any thoughts or concerns? Or
Are you saying, Madam Mayor, that if we do not approve this, that we will not be able to the recreational development of the golf course would have a road to a housing development?
No, sir.
through?
You'd have, the engineer would have to draw it up. You'd have a driveway, and then to the right driveway would go to our recreational facility. Straight ahead driveway, and have to be some space between it, would go to the 30 acres. And then the driveway, possibly using the easement that is already there, would go back to the 20 acres. So you'd have one driveway with in other words, we're not going back to the housing areas. Our driveway is going to be the entrance to our whatever's going to happen on the greenway. And then the driveway that would be for the 30 acres would be for whatever he's going to do. And then the other driveway would be to have access to the townhomes, which would then solve the problem. And it would be cost effective because you'd only have to have the turn lane, and then you'd have to have the driveway, which would have to be an expanded driveway, and then the 3 cuts off of it. I'm not an engineer, I'm not a road person, but I do know enough about what I've been going through with FAMPO to know that in order to get us a driveway, them a driveway, and the 30 acres of driveway on a busy road like Golfview, along with Suchak that's already there, and the other cuts that are on that road, it would just make good sense for us to partner together. So,
Do we
Yes, sir.
know, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
uh-huh.
do we know yet, Chancellor, how many units may go back in the back 30 acres back there?
No.
No proposal yet, so we don't know.
No. We haven't had any conversations with the owner of the 30 acres. Just in full disclosure, I did make a phone call to the developer of the Hutt 114 on Thursday afternoon, and he was very receptive of the possibility of doing this. I haven't heard back from him, but what she's talking about is very delicate.
You're right.
I will say that again. It's very delicate in terms of our approach, but I think if you recall back to the conversation our public works director had in terms of the current location of the access of our temporary driveway, he was putting it in a distance that preserved the ability of a second driveway. But based on what I'm seeing, we won't be at a position to approach that second driveway anytime soon. If they get there first, it's never going to be ours.
Right.
So this doesn't mean it's going to work.
It's just
But
it's more
can
or
we
less a
explore the
committee
possibilities?
we have to have conversations, and so you put this group together. And it might end up that they say nope, don't want to do this. But the idea is if they're willing to come to the table, and if they're willing to talk to us, in other words, we're a third party to this. If they're willing to come to the table and talk, then I believe it'll be beneficial to all of us.
And I think what's getting lost in a lot of the conversations is that when we met with the developer, his first choice was Golfview. That's just in full disclosure. He chose Crampton because of the challenge of trying to get a road in compliance with our standards and specs in that little slither of land that leads off to Golfview. He doesn't have access to the other piece. That guy's not at the table. We're not at the table. So he would have had to get the right-of-way, the sidewalks on both sides, in that little slither of land. This is a different conversation. Even if it's us going to DOT with our driveway permit, it's a different conversation if we're coming to the table with all the other 2 owners of the entire development of the 3 lots. It's a different conversation with DOT because that's a partnership conversation that we're having. And the end result is it does directly address the issue that the neighborhood is bringing up with respect to the Crampton.
But,
Yes, sir.
I like it. I think especially tonight after we heard the few comments that we had, and I'm sure there's a whole lot more over there. So what? Just clarification. What kind of committee are you calling this?
I can call it a Golfview Driveway Study Committee.
I'd like to put that in the form of a motion that we approve the mayor to move forward with that.
And I'd like to second it.
I'd like to serve on the committee, Mayor.
We're not going to put any board
Oh,
members.
okay.
The
I
reason
see.
why is
But
you
we're gonna
have,
put you. Okay,
Well, I don't
It's
have
just
a
not a voter.
vote, sir.
okay.
That's why we don't want to put commissioners on it. It'll be brought back to you for a vote. And that way it makes it less,
Madam Mayor, can I
yes,
ask
sir. Sure.
Bruce a
Yes, sir.
question?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask you a question, sir? How would this affect our parking lot driveway at the golf course? Is it gonna limit us to not being able to have but one in the future? Because we talked about possible another one that
In conversations earlier with DOT, they basically alluded to there would only be one other driveway put in there in addition to what we suppose would be ours at some point at Fairway. And they were honest with us and said, basically whoever gets there first.
we've got that one other driveway in there now, don't we?
It's temporary.
Temporary, okay.
That's temporary. We would have to, and the plan was never to have the permanent one there. It was always to be at Fairway.
Fairway, right.
It's just that doesn't work for the temporary because it was going to take a lot of extra money to develop the parking lot there.
So we'll have to pay for turn lanes there,
Well,
possibly.
possibly that would all be a part of the DOT permit for the driveway.
And we're gonna have to have turn lanes for the temporary driveway,
No,
No.
okay? But we would have to have turn lanes for the driveway that the mayor's speaking of.
it would need to be turn lanes or traffic signals. That would be DOT would have to determine that.
And that's where I said this would have to be a study and see what the best practice would be. But the idea would be it would benefit everybody, and one driveway cut off of Golfview would then satisfy access to each of the developments to include our own. I mean, if it may not work, but if we don't enter in, like I said, I believe partnerships are important, and if you can bring these people together to the table and talk about it, very likely it would save all of us the cost.
Let me ask this question, if I may. How many feet is it from the existing red light to the cutoff for the little strip of land there between the golf course parking lot and the subdivision entrance?
Well, that wouldn't be the issue because you also have Suchak in between there. So there's also a road in between. You're talking about the light at Golfview and Rockfish.
Right.
Well, you also have another road. You have Suchak as well.
Yeah.
Then you have a permanent driveway, which is there at the golf course now. Then you have Fairway. So there's already really 4 spoken for in there. So that's the reason why in our initial discussion with them, they said one more is probably all that's going to be able to be put in there.
I remember at the time we were wanting to put a red light, DOT to put a red light down here across from O'Reilly's. They told us they couldn't have 2 red lights that close together. So I'm concerned about if they put a red light there, or if we propose to put a red light there, how that would affect us being able to get a red light for a driveway entrance this close to the Rockfish Road, Golfview Road intersection.
And again, that would all, whether you do a red light or a signal versus turn lanes, deceleration lanes, that's all based on use as well. And we would be increasing the use of that driveway. That driveway, if it's a multiple use driveway, now you're increasing the potential traffic in and out. So that's all
And
things that DOT would have to consider.
And they would also consider the current plan is to put a circle there at
And a
Golfview and Rockview, a roundabout.
Right.
So if that roundabout's going in, it could change the complexity of the rest of it because of that, the way they're doing traffic
Yeah,
there.
There's a lot of factors.
Yeah, and that's why it would be a study. I mean, I can guess the what ifs, but until we actually bring the DOT to the table and the planner and Miss Adams and the property owners, and see
But
what's.
Chancellor was exactly right on the initial talkings with that developer was that they want to come out on Gulfview. They do. That was their first.
Yeah.
We're the ones that when we shared our standards and specs with them and the right of ways and the sidewalks, that they just flat out didn't have enough room on what they currently own. They didn't have enough room.
One thing I would like to reiterate in terms of time being of essence, the hearing date for this case is probably going to be set this week.
Huh?
The hearing date for this case to come back to you guys off Crampton is probably going to be set this week, which means that it'll probably be on your agenda for consideration on the 20th. So if there is something that we're trying to do, we need to do that now to get that, to see if that developer is open to this, to see if he's willing to rethink his
Well, Madam
current
Mayor, that
approach.
was my question too, was like, because staff has not completed their review of the site plan. Am I
We
correct?
reviewed it. We just the
And
county
submitted all
hasn't-
your comments.
The county hasn't officially gotten all of our comments and the comments from the other regulatory agencies. So this hasn't been set for a hearing date. It hasn't come to you guys for approval. But I'm just saying this isn't something we can kind of linger around for the next month or so, because it's gonna come back to you for consideration. If you guys so choose, we need to get on the phone with this guy immediately to see if he's, like I said, initial conversation, he was very interested.
Can we set that tomorrow? That would be what we do, is to see if we can set something up.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
It seems, okay, I know we have a lot of questions, but it seems like this is the reason why you're trying to do the study committee.
Right.
And then two, I think that legally, if the only way for us to try to help those residents, this is the only other option that we have.
That's the only thing I can think
And
of.
I know there's a lot of concerns, because just like the road out here is full, Golfway is full too. I travel that road every day, especially between 7:30 in the morning and 12 o'clock in the evening.
I
So-
think what we're getting out of this is, like the mayor said, this doesn't mean that this is gonna work. But to all those people calling and emailing, we got to do something, and this does give them
It
at
gives
least
them-
a clear indication that
And
we're trying to
and we're
work
being
through some
proactive.
issues.
We're
Yeah.
trying to solve a situation, and if it works, then that will be, we will have
the other
eliminated a
question
lot
I
of the
have too,
traffic to
Mayor.
Crampton.
Why did they go to Crampton? What entitles them to use Crampton?
Crampton's
regulations
is
entitle them. We don't-
regulations. It's a
yeah.
town street that's right away at the end, so it's meant for.
And I think that's another misconception. There's this notion that we are allowing them to choose Crampton. We don't have the authority to determine which access they do make. The only thing we can do is analyze the proposed access for its compliance with our standards and specs. We can't actually tell him, we're not going to allow you to go Crampton. You got to go Golfview. We don't have that authority. If he chooses Golfview, the standards and specs off of Golfview apply to the road that's created. DOT provides the regulatory approval of that driveway permit off Golfview. If he comes in off Crampton, then the extension of it and the compliance with standards and specs goes directly and solely to our public works department. That's what we have the authority to do. We don't have the authority or the right to tell him one or the other. It's just to analyze which one he does choose.
So the
for its
developer
compliance.
can use that unimproved right-of-way.
For Crampton.
So that's what you're telling me.
Crampton is currently
The developer can use that.
Crampton is currently listed on our Powell bill map as unimproved right-of-way all the way up to the golf course piece
Up to the
that's owned
fence.
by the YMCA. I think there's a slither of land that's grassed in between those two houses that's giving the general public the impression
Yeah.
that that's a separate piece of property that has a parcel ID number. That is unimproved right-of-way that was never paved. So
Right.
we're treating that the same way we would treat the extension of phase 2 of Preserver Lake Upchurch, which is there's a Hammerhead Road in phase 1. They're just extending it through to phase 2. We're analyzing for its compliance with the standards and specs. That's the way I would appear to treat the proposed extension to Crampton. But as Mayor Pro Tem McCray said, with the legal aspects of how you have to treat the request for the subdivision, I think this is probably the only avenue the board has to try something alternative that you have within your means. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to work, but I think we can at least show the community that we're trying to do something.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, I agree with Ms. McCray and Chancellor that, you know, this committee says that we heard those residents over there tonight, and we're trying to do something to help them, and that we were listening. So I think it's a good idea, and I call for the vote.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, the motion is that we would open a Golfview Driveway Study Committee. All those in favor signify by.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Mayor, before we make this decision, if there's any doubt in your mind about opening up Crampton, come and sit on my front porch. I've got 2 subdivisions next door to me. The traffic in my neighborhood is terrible, absolutely terrible. Speeding, running off the road, parking on the sidewalks. Now, if you want to come and sit with me, go ahead. I vote with Ms. McCray on this.
Okay, so we have a motion to have a study committee. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. And the goal will be to, I know that the only representative would be from DOT, that we might need to find out who would be available. But as far as the others, I'll give you that information that I have to help with it. All righty, thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to hopefully this giving us a solution. Next, we have our manager's report. Do you have anything to add?
No, I don't, Madam Mayor. Thank
Okay.
you.
All righty. We have, of course, we know our meetings are subject to change. Everything right now is dependent upon what's going on with COVID-19. Committee liaisons, Commissioner Edwards, did you have anything to report?
The Appearance Commission met, and all members were there, and they had 2 new ones that they welcomed in. They're making plans for the gazebo, and they were talking about the lake electrical panel, and right now they can't do anything because of COVID, so they're thinking about what they're going to do, but they can't do anything yet.
Okay.
And I hadn't heard anything from Mclaughlin.
Okay. Commissioner Legg?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have a historic meeting set up later this week. I wasn't able to be here for the RULAC meeting, but Drew took my place by phone, and I believe they did the approval of the budget for the RULAC. Am I correct on that, Madam?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So that's all I have, ma'am.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Marley, Veterans Affairs.
Yes, ma'am. The Veteran Affairs Commission met on the 25th, and they had several questions that I sent an email to the manager for clarification on, and I copied everybody on the board. It was right lengthy, so I won't read it all. But the manager responded back soon after I sent the email, and the membership of the Veteran Affairs Committee received those answers. The only other thing I'll say is they are working really hard to get the memorial over here, the Veterans Memorial, looking good. They went out there the other Saturday morning, the Veteran Affairs Committee, about 100 degrees out there, and they were out there and they repainted the gun that's out there, and it looks really good. So, you know, they're working hard to beautify it. So, but they did work hard.
If I may, I have an update on the email that I sent to you
Okay.
all concerning that. So, a couple of things. One is addressed in my manager's report that Public Works is in the process of engaging a contractor for the repairs to the Veterans Memorial Monument, and that quote was for $13,600. It's included in this year's budget. They've already started engaging the contractor on that. Second thing was the ant issue. They have sprayed and put treatment down for the ants, and I've asked that they go back in a couple of weeks, make sure, you know, do we need to reapply, and Parks and Rec has indicated, Buildings and Grounds has indicated they will go back and keep an eye on that and reapply as necessary. And then the third thing is, there was the issue of the website and wanting the ability to get to the committee quicker. And I had Kelly Wall, who looks, oversees our webpage, as well as Ms. Shattuck, Tiffany, and it actually is only 2 clicks and you're on the committee. So instead of, if you go to the boards and committees, it's the government tab. And underneath that, it has a drop down of all the committees. Just click on what committee you want. You don't have to go to boards and committees. If you go to boards and committees, that's 2 clicks. Then you're going to have to go to the committee that you want. That's 3 clicks. If you just go and it drops down, you can hit the Veterans Affairs in 2 clicks.
Okay.
I don't know that we can make it any easier to access. They both looked at it and indicated to me that it's just a matter of people learning how to navigate the website. So, just wanted to make sure that you knew that we had addressed that.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and I think they're just trying to get as much involvement
Right.
and get word out as
Right.
best they can. And they've even went out and looking at quotes for fencing, to replace the fence, and trying to figure out ways to fund that. And so they're really proactive. They're doing a lot of work.
They are.
Okay, is that it?
Mhm.
All right, next I have Mayor Pro Tem McCray, Parks and Rec, and Air Quality.
Mine is quite lengthy, but I'll try to shorten it up. We hadn't met since February or March. We did meet on June 22nd. We were finally able to elect our officers. The committee voted on a fee schedule for the weight room. Ages 15 to 54 is $15 per month with unlimited use. Ages 55 and up is $10 a month with unlimited use. And non-citizens will be charged $20 per month with unlimited use. And we thought that fee would help offset the new equipment that's in the weight room. All registrations is now done online. Participants still have the option to register manually if they choose to. And they will help you with online registration if you have any issues. We had 35 to 40 children in our summer camp, and that was about the same amount of children that we had last year. For late night basketball, there will be, if we're able to have it, there will be a $5 fee added. All boat permits are waived until further notice. Fall registration is from June 1st through August the 1st. We had 55 registered as of June 18th. Soccer had the highest registration, followed by volleyball, which is co-ed. There is a new drop box outside of the Parks and Recreation building. Most of you have probably seen that. And that is to assist with the collection of timesheets and other pertinent information from activities taking place since the building is closed. And it's also a suggestion box. Fall sports is ages 7 to 12 is football, 5 to 14 soccer, 7 to 12 fall baseball, 5 to 14 cheer, and ages 7 to 17 volleyball. The cheer will be in the Gary Dove building. We did have a discussion about adding summer camps, sport camps, but there's an issue with space sometimes. So that is something maybe that they're able to explore in the future. And they also introduced Ricky Sadler. He's the new assistant supervisor. And finally, with Heritage Park, with the part of grant, I think as of right now, they've already done the pre-site visit. I think they've already done that, which gives us a good chance, knock on wood, which gives us a good chance of getting that grant. And that is all. My Air Stakes Quality Stakeholders meeting is this Thursday.
Okay.
May
thank
I
you.
ask a question?
Uh-huh, sure.
Did you say that, what were the ages again and fees for the weight room?
Ages for ages 18 to 54 is $15 a month. That is unlimited use. Ages 55 and up is $10 per month with unlimited use, and non-citizens is $20 a month unlimited use.
Okay, so you don't have any more senior citizens free of charge?
Not from my understanding.
Okay. All righty. Well, I have, of course, my Mayor's Youth Leadership Committee has not been meeting, and what I'd like to do is go ahead, if we can, start preparing the letter to go to the 3 high schools. We'll use the same thing we did last year, but what I want to try, hopefully by the time school starts, we'll be able to have the first group, or we can do some social distancing to get them here, because I especially with now having a millennial group too, I think we can get them kicked off. That'll be wonderful. FAMPO, we did a Zoom meeting. I talked about that the last time. And then the FCEDC hasn't had a meeting because of the virus. I did want to just mention one thing that I was invited to but was not able to go to, and that's the Venturing Crew 32. There was 22 members, and they sent me the video they took, but they actually went to Hope Mills Lake Park, and what they did is they picked up 1,700 pieces of trash, and they had a thousand. They were looking for, trying to contribute to a thing going on now about how much trash you can pick up in an area. But the neat thing about this group is that they came and it was 1 o'clock and it was hot, and they picked up cigarette butts, they picked up anything that was litter. So if you get an opportunity, you can go on their site. They actually have it's called Venturing 32 Facebook site, and you can go on there and thank them or something if you will.
Can we do something to recognize them at a meeting? I mean, 'cause they do a lot of, they do a lot.
Yeah, they do so many activities that just benefit the whole community. But I've got the contact information for their leader, and it's male and female. It's a co-ed group too. That's a good thing.
They're very active at Veterans Day and Memorial Day and ceremonies here in the park
Yeah.
over the years.
Yeah, they're a good group.
Very, very active.
And they also do they do a flag ceremony where they burn the flags that are damaged or no longer of use.
Yes.
They have a special ceremony there on Legion Road. So they do a lot of stuff for the community. Now we're to staff comments.
Well, if I may,
Yes.
I have a question for Mayor Pro Tem McCray regarding the proposed changes to the fee schedule. Am I correct, or is this something?
We voted on it. They voted on it. I didn't
Okay.
vote on it. They voted on it.
They voted on it.
It's a recommendation.
But I believe any amendments to the fee schedule have to come back to the Board of Commissioners for approval. And I just would like to go on record, last year, Parks and Rec wanted to implement the fee for the seniors, and I did not approve that, and therefore it was not brought to you all. So, if you all, you're certainly welcome to entertain the recommendations of the Parks and Rec Committee, but I do have concerns about increasing the cost for our seniors. And I just want to go on the record for that, so, but it's completely up to you all. But I believe it would need to come back for a vote for an amendment to our fee schedule.
Okay.
Madam Manager,
Uh-huh.
seniors have always been free,
Yes,
and I'm always advertising
For
around
years.
town
yeah.
about seniors are free.
Yep.
And now I was shocked tonight when I found out this
Me too.
proposal.
When I heard that, it was like,
Because, of course, any of those committees is just a recommendation.
Correct.
It's not in concrete until it
Correct.
comes here.
Yeah, they have no authority to change
Yeah.
any of our ordinances, and the fee schedule is tied to our budget ordinance, so
So-
that has to come back to you all.
When do you have another meeting, Ms. McCray?
Our next meeting is June 27th. I don't know, maybe you want to get with Mr. Morrison, and maybe we can
July
get with the
27th.
July 27th, and we
Okay.
can get with the committee and just tell them what we decided to do. I'm not opposed to having the seniors free. I really try to stay out of there. I usually just try to be a mouthpiece when I'm supposed to,
Right.
and I let them do their meetings. But I'm not opposed to that, and I don't think they would be either.
Can I make a friendly motion that says we don't charge our seniors? I'm one of them.
I think you would
I think
wait till the
it'll
whole
come-
thing's brought
it'll come
back.
to you all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in the meantime, Of course, we didn't adopt this, did we?
No, so in the
Okay.
meantime, it's just what it is right now, but
Yeah.
when it's brought back, then that's when you can vote, and
Okay.
you have an opportunity maybe to change it before it's ever brought to us.
And that's, last year, they staff wanted to implement the increase, and I said no, not for the seniors. And so it never went to the Parks and Rec at that point, because I
Cut it off early.
cut it off at that point, but this one,
Well, thank you, ma'am.
I
Appreciate
wasn't
you.
asked about this one, so.
Yeah.
But,
Miss McCray didn't know she was gonna get in hot water for giving the report.
well,
did
no,
she?
she's not. No. Don't.
Well, I guess that's why it's good to give
Wrong.
informative reports.
That's
Right,
right.
exactly.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, great job.
Good job.
That's my only
Okay.
comments. Thank you, ma'am.
Anything from Ms. Darling? And thank you so much for being here tonight with us. We appreciate you coming. We always enjoy your being here. All right, official comments. I'll start with Commissioner Bellflowers.
Just like to thank everybody for coming tonight and all the speakers, and Katie, always a pleasure seeing you. 2.0.
Commissioner Edwards. Mayor Pro Tem.
No, I would just like to thank, I saw the Veterans Committee members beautifying our memorial park, so I'd like to thank them for that, and the other committee that helped beautify, I don't want to get their name wrong, that helped beautify the community. I like to tell them that we appreciate that as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Marley.
I just want to reiterate that, I know this, project, God, I've lost words. The proposed apartment complex or whatever at the golf course, I know it's a big topic, and, I just wanted to say that, we did hear the people that spoke tonight. Thank you for coming up with that idea. I think it's a great thing that we're going to be proactive on that and try to help the situation. Unfortunately, our hands are tied on a lot of it, but anything we can do to try to help, I think, is a good thing. And really, we had a long meeting, but I think we got a lot done, and I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Commissioner Legg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too would like to thank everyone who came to speak tonight, and I'd like to thank the staff and the police officers and our attorney for being here tonight. Like Commissioner Marley says, I want to let these people in Gulf Acres and over that area, let them know that we heard their voices. I was out of town this past week, and I had 4 phone calls from here to Kentucky concerning that. And then I had 3 before I came to the meeting tonight. I guess people got in late from work and decided they were going to call me at the last minute. But like I said, if there's any doubt in your mind, come over and sit on my front porch. I'll fix you a cup of coffee or a glass of tea. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank the board tonight. We have to sometimes agree to disagree, but I appreciate everybody being very nice to each other, and most things we agreed on, and we moved forward. I also appreciate the staff and the efforts you've made and the things that we have to do sometimes when we can't do things normal. Thank Mr. Mclaughlin. You've had to put in some extra time and effort for all these things happening right now. And I, again, can't thank our public works and our police and fire department for all the things that they've done, because we just keep getting kudos on the way it is in Hope Mills. So I just want you to know that that's a nice thing to know, that things are going well. And if without anything further to do, is there?
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn, and I need a second.
Second.
All righty, we all said good night.